won't see me stop, no, you won't see me quit. I'm gon' make it to the top, if it's the last thing I did. Never catch me, man, I'm gone, cause I'll be working off the grid. Grinding through all the pain, I said I'd do it, and I did. I'm the type to work until my hands fucking bleed. I'm the type to fight when others fall into their knees. I'm the type to ask for more pain, get it please. Cause on the other side of pain is everything I fucking need. I got a hunger inside of me, a flame ignites entirely. I work daily quietly to build a perfect dynasty, a place where my mind is free from the chains of society. I take all anxiety and turn it to the finer things. Oh, don't take it slow, I got these places to go. I wanna grow, I wanna be something more, a different mode, I'll hit if I gotta go. Cause I got something to show the world that one day will know. You won't see me stop, no, you won't see me quit. I'm gon' make it to the top, if it's the last thing I did. Never catch me, man, I'm gone, cause I'll be working off the grid. Grinding through all the pain, I said I'd do it, and I did. I'm the type to work until my hands fucking bleed. I'm the type to fight when others fall into their knees. I'm the type to ask for more pain, get it please. Cause on the other side of pain is everything I fucking need. Till my hands fucking bleed. Till my hands fucking bleed. You won't see me stop, no, you won't see me quit. I'm gonna make it to the top, if it's the last thing I did. Never catch me, man, I'm gone, cause I've been working off the grid. Grinding through all the pain, I said I'd do it, and I did. You won't see me stop, no, you won't see me quit. I'm gonna make it to the top, if it's the last thing I did. Never catch me, man, I'm gone, cause I've been working off the grid. Grinding through all the pain, I said I'd do it, and I did. Till my hands fucking bleed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Stroke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact. Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello, and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick, and I'm here getting my medicine rolled up. It's running a little behind today. I was like, let me get some medicine rolled up because it's going to be a long show. We got a lot of news to get to, a lot. But I do have some medicine that I had from the morning show here that I'm going to light up and just smoke during the first showing of we're going to go straight to the weather and what's going on over there in the Atlantic. All right, let's go ahead and set this up. I had everything all ready, nice and ready to go. Let's go ahead and just couple of clicks and let's watch.
Yeah, the main thing that's happened is that the thunderstorms have become more symmetric around the center. So the satellite estimates of the intensity have gone up. Hurricane hunters haven't been out there yet to measure all this, but they will later on. But you can see when you look at this, watch it early, and you see everything over here, and now you see everything kind of around the center. It's still a little displaced to the north up in here, kind of a northern 2/3 of the storm, but there is symmetry on both sides. We still have all this dry air here coming down here and kind of eroding the bottom of the storm and also up into here. You see it on this side here, this kind of gap in the thunderstorms there. That's this very, very dry atmosphere over the state of Florida. That's why it's been so sunny today, and we haven't had big thunderstorms because of the dry air. Look at it close up here, and you can see the thunderstorms blossoming right over the center. See that right there? As the sun is going down, you can really see those tall thunderstorms all around the center there. And there's this band, and this band has had strong winds in it, and it goes and it wraps around there like that. All those are signs of an intensifying storm. And so the National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service, and other agencies look at the satellite and have ways of analyzing the satellite to estimate the wind speed. And that's what they've done. They came up with 65 miles per hour. When we look over Florida here, you can see there's just low clouds. All the clouds, nothing is bright white from this sticking up into the sunlight. They're all low because the atmosphere is super, super dry over here. And you can make out where the line is between the dry air and then the very tropical air associated with the tropical storm, soon to be hurricane. Now, when we look at the radar over top of it, the radar is coming out of Melbourne here, shooting most of this. I think the Miami radar is probably out of range, maybe a little bit here. So we can't see the other side of the storm, but we can see how far the intense moisture from the tropical storm is from the coast. It's not that far, but just because of the way this thing is tracking on to the north, Florida is not going to feel the tropical rains. There is some moisture speeding north all the way into the Carolinas. Been kind of a dreary day there today. Behind a front is kind of sitting right along the coast there. So the tropical moisture goes up over the front, and then it's kind of a misty, cool rain, relatively cool rain up there, not an overcast, not the tropical air, which is down to the south. Okay, here's the new forecast from the Hurricane Center. Still forecasting it to be Hurricane Imelda tomorrow morning. When you see AM there, it means overnight, really, nominally 2 a.m. Eastern time. And then speeding on off into the Atlantic. Notice Bermuda is right in the cone there. So between 90 and 100 miles per hour is the estimated wind speed when the storm is in the vicinity of Bermuda. Now, the storm isn't that big. Bermuda is very tiny, so they have to get kind of unlucky to get the worst of the storm going over Bermuda, but it is right there near the center of the cone. So they have a hurricane watch up just in case in Bermuda, getting ready for that one, while they also have Humberto that is going to come close, although apparently not as close. All right, there's Humberto now, and notice we just barely making out an eye there. Still has, if that's the eye right there, and I think it is, then we still see dark colors on the satellite all the way around it, that's a sign that Umberto is still very strong, 140 miles per hour. And there's the cone on Umberto. You see it kind of loops around Bermuda, but Bermuda is on the right side, so that's the bigger side and the stronger side. So they could get some gusty winds there, although they don't have any watches up for that one. They have them up for Imelda. Okay, so here's the main thing as far as the U.S. goes, and that's the energy in the water from these two systems. And here you can see, since this one is weaker and smaller, it's not as big an area. This one is a big old hurricane out here, so it has a big area of huge waves that's generating. These are the kind of waves that the cruise ships go over, or ships go over out in the ocean, not the crashing on the beach kind of waves, but they're kind of related because it's energy in the water. So now watch as we go forward in time here, and watch the systems push the water and the energy toward the coast. So the reds, notice, go all the way from down here. It's underneath the word Miami there. It's kind of a yellow. Then reds go all the way up the coast to New Hampshire. So the reds are up here in the 12 to 15 foot range of open ocean seas, but that's an indication of the kind of energy coming to the coast. And look, as we go through the day tomorrow into Wednesday, and it goes all the way up to New England. The entire coast, all the way down to about Palm Beach County, Florida, has this extra energy in it, which makes rip currents worse, which just makes it more dangerous in the surf, makes bigger surf, makes the water come up higher on the beach, all of that. And then it's going to move on out to sea. So we're all pretty confident about this kind of unusual track, Ian, because the what's that one? The GFS model and the European, and of course the Google AI model all say going out to sea.
When these systems come back around
Shane Brown
as fronts, we're going to get heavy snow in the United States.
And if you can see what the Google model said for multiple days there, here it was on the 25th, this line here, and the 27th, and then the 29th today, kind of in the middle. But certainly when we look and we have all those lines and we take an average called the mean, that's what these lines are here. So it's been very impressive. Never got more than 130 miles to the South Carolina coast. So I think everybody's going to be paying more attention to this model if we have any more storms going forward.
I wouldn't put my faith on AI, though.
I need that. I need that graphic. I mean, it's something we've been watching. We were talking about that all the way back through the middle part of last week. Brian, you had said you showed some of the dry air getting pulled down on the backside of the storm in Florida. I was curious, getting to the point of the season where it's possible, if any of that was making it to the surface. No, Orlando, the dew point.
No, last time I checked the dew point out
mid-70s.
There, let's see, the dew point right now 74.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
so the short answer is no.
Point.
It's still painfully muggy.
Yeah, right.
But
well, I mean, I say anytime it's less than 75, I'm pretty happy, this time of year.
Yeah.
Nominally, the dry season begins October 15th. That's the normal time for South Florida for the dry season to begin.
That's
in Tampa, Orlando, obviously it begins before that. But
spoken like a true decades-long Florida man right there. For me, you get above 70 and it starts getting a little soupy. That was my only gripe
hey, Chloe.
living down in Florida. But one of these fronts will come through and then it'll be just like the greatest thing when that dry
Oh, yeah. I was super excited to see her.
Hurricane specialist Brian Norcross with the latest from the NHC. Brian, thank you.
She's awesome people. All right, we're going to continue on with the news because I do have a lot of windows open. So we're just keep on moving on.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so no intro on this one. Let's go straight to what's going on. Here's the situation. We obviously have the internet working overtime trying to learn everything about this Thomas Sanford individual, the Grand Blanc Mormon church shooter, and of course with the left on defense as of late, considering everything that's happened over the last 2 years, they've now seemingly found their trump card to flip the script. I'm sure you guys have seen it all over online. The left is running wild with one particular photo that shows Sanford in a t-shirt that reads, "Make liberals cry again, Trump 2020. It's being pushed by all the online activists and even sitting Democrats like Eric Swalwell as definitive proof that this was a
who cares as a party? That's why I don't understand this Democrats, man.
And I was skeptical.
Oh, it's your party.
Blended or possibly AI generated. I mean, let's just zoom into it. It looks like that's possibly a joint coming out of Trump's fist. It seems off. And so a bunch of people started declaring this as an AI-generated photo and then circulating a debunked
AI-generated
showing
photo.
supposedly the original image where that graphic doesn't exist on the shirt. But it turns out, at least based on my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the photo with the scrubbed graphic that could potentially be the fake one. What's now circulating online is the original photo that actually does have that Trump graphic, that does have the Make Liberals Cry Again t-shirt, in the original photo posted by the family on Facebook in 2018. So this is years before AI-generated photos were a thing. And so it seems the shirt might actually be authentic. And so my warning is, maybe let's slow down a little bit here. Let's not hurt our credibility by claiming this is a fake photo. Let's not dive into the mud with these Democrats and play their games, because really, we don't need to. Let's just assume the photo is real. This guy in 2018 was pictured with a Trump t-shirt, and they posted it to this Facebook group that they created for their son who was fighting illness. What does that prove? I mean, first of all, there's a lot of people who will vote one way 7 years ago and then vote another in the modern day, or have a complete shift in their political perspectives. And outside of that, it doesn't prove political intent. There's no manifesto here. There's no statement. There's no evidence from investigators that are telling us that this was anything other than a man in crisis. Sanford was a 42-year-old veteran, likely struggling with PTSD. He had family issues. We know that his son was sick. There's even a post that's being circulated from his mother that's quite cryptic, and people are assuming that she's speaking about her son. And so what's likely here is that this is an individual who was possibly going through severe mental health breakdowns, and that could explain what happened. It could have also been a personal motive. It could have been, he personally had an issue with the Mormon church. And yet here we are, Democrats are trying to use a snapshot from 7 years ago to manufacture a political motive out of thin air. They're desperate to equate this tragedy with the wave of explicitly political left-wing violence that we've been seeing. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is an example of that. He was killed because he was right-wing. He was killed for a political motive explicitly stated by the shooter. These are not the same. One is possibly a personal breakdown. It's tragic and it's horrible, but it might have not been ideologically targeted. There's no evidence, and even logically, it doesn't make sense that he would shoot up a Mormon church on behalf of some MAGA agenda. That sounds incredibly counterintuitive and paradoxical. Meanwhile, the other is organized. It's openly justified. Meanwhile, a lot of these left-wing acts of violence are coming directly downstream from left-wing rhetoric and beliefs. The left is playing a game here. They're finding a Trump yard sign or a MAGA t-shirt and immediately claiming, it's political terrorism. They're pretending that voting preferences or voting history equals motive when it clearly doesn't. And you know what? I don't want to play that game with them. I'm seeing a lot of people posting a lot of things that are just incorrect. And I get it. It's defensive in nature. Assuming the photo's AI and then circulating another photo that you haven't even confirmed because you saw someone else post it and pushing a narrative that could possibly be false. Or a lot of people that are posting political contributions of Thomas Sanford's in the area. There's no confirmation that it's the same Thomas Sanford who's donating to Act Blue or whatever it is. I've also seen people, even some high-profile people that I used to respect, but, over the last couple of months, I've seen them post a lot of dubious things, like anti-Trump Facebook posts from a guy named Thomas Sanford on Facebook, but the man in the profile photo is like 70 years old. It's not even the same Thomas Sanford. We do not need to stoop to their level. It's totally unnecessary. And this right here is where we have to be different from the left. We don't need to play their misinformation games. We don't need to twist a random Facebook photo into some big political narrative. We don't need to spread fake news or cherry pick scraps of information to craft a narrative. That's what they do. We saw it after Charlie Kirk's murder, where there was a literal political motive and the left celebrated it, but they also did everything in their power to manufacture this false story, this false narrative that the shooter was right-wing. They photoshopped a Trump campaign sign on Tyler Robinson's t-shirt. We don't need to reverse Photoshop a Trump sign off of this guy's t-shirt. There is absolutely no use for that. We don't need to stoop to that level. All we have to do is keep doing the right thing, keep doing what we always do. If this had truly been a right-wing political attack, we'll wait for the information to reveal that. And when it's revealed, we'll condemn it outright. That's it. Period. That's what makes us different. We don't need to play distraction games for the psychopath shooter. I have no interest in that. And that right there is the difference. The left thrives on lies, on half-truths, on weaponized narratives, on fake news, misinformation, and doctored photos and videos. We don't, because we have the moral high ground. We've had it for a while. We aren't the same, and the facts are on our side. The wave of political violence in this country is overwhelmingly left-wing, and even their own senators in the latest skewed studies that totally overpresent supposed right-wing political violence are starting to show that. The difference is integrity. When we see violence, we condemn it outright. When they see violence, they celebrate it. Or they try to manufacture as if it isn't part of them. They aren't complicit. Their rhetoric had nothing to do with it. Well, in this case, we don't need to do that because our rhetoric had nothing to do with it. Nobody in right-wing politics is demonizing Mormonism, and so let them keep doing what they're doing. There's no need to do anything, because if we get something wrong, then all of a sudden, we look like idiots. Just simply let their bogus narratives collapse. Let their credibility continue to keep sinking. That's all we need, because in the end, the truth and doing the right thing will outlast the propaganda and the lies. All we need to do is stand on principle here. And trust me, the contrast is already clear. We remember what happened after Charlie Kirk was murdered in cold blood. They didn't just refuse to condemn it. So many of them celebrated it. When ICE agents are shot or ambushed, they smear the officers. We can connect that directly to their rhetoric, calling those ICE officers Gestapo on a constant basis. When mobs are burning down cities and they call it mostly peaceful, we understand what they're running cover for. Nobody is running cover for this guy. He's clearly a deranged individual, and who he voted for 7 years ago is not a relevant fact as of right now, unless it's connected to something else. The left has no integrity. They'll take a tragedy and immediately try to weaponize it for political gain. They'll ignore obvious context. They'll spin a web, craft their bogus narratives. They play these disgusting, cynical games, and we simply do not need to participate. So the guy might have voted for Trump at some point. Who cares? Not the same thing. The idea that we bear responsibility or this is connected to us by virtue of that is completely dishonest. It's complete nonsense. And that alone makes the left look bad and disingenuous. That is the part where we win. That is the angle that we have here. Obviously, based on the facts we have so far, you can't be jumping to these politically motivated conclusions. And the Democrats, of course, are going to try to force that, but you can't force these things. And so just let it fizzle out. It's not going to work. People aren't going to buy it. People are smart enough to see through something so clearly partisan and disingenuous. It's not going to stick like Charlie Kirk's murder. Let the left keep exposing itself, and that is all that is necessary right now. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and continue on the news because we've still got a lot to watch.
On alert after a gunman rammed his car into a packed church in Michigan, shooting at the worshipers and then setting the building on fire.
So at least 4 are dead in the attack, and law enforcement feared that the death toll could grow.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt joins us now to react from the White House. Caroline, we all watched this in horror yesterday. Is there anything that you've been briefed with that could move this story forward to find out what the motive might have been?
Well, first of all, I want to express our sincere condolences to the victims and their families and all of the members of this church who were gathering on a Sunday in the United States of America to worship Jesus Christ. And a crazed gunman rammed his truck into the church and started firing at these innocent Americans. And our hearts break. The president was very quick to put out a statement completely condemning this and assuring the American people that the FBI is on the scene. And I spoke with our FBI director, Kash Patel, bright and early this morning. He assured me and the American public that the FBI is currently executing multiple search warrants at the residences and the family homes of this perpetrator to try to get to the bottom of why he would commit such an act of evil. And the FBI is working with both state and local law enforcement, providing the full support of the federal government. And I just want to commend state and local law enforcement for their swift and incredible response. Local police officers were on the ground of this scene within minutes and neutralized this shooter, no doubt saving lives. And they should be commended. Our police officers are heroes, and this president will always respect them and support them.
They definitely were. They were there in 32 seconds, Caroline.
Wow.
What did the FBI director tell you about
right
the shooter?
there.
What do we know?
What we know at this point in time is that he was a member of this Michigan community, that he is a veteran of our United States Armed Forces. He served in the United States Marine Corps in Iraq. His family is cooperating with the FBI, and so they are currently trying to dig in and get to the bottom of why he committed this heinous act of violence. It's unfathomable. And as the president rightfully put in his Truth Social yesterday, this appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians. And the Trump administration is fully committed to not only investigating these crimes, but prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law, but also working very hard to prevent them, to see if there's red flags. The FBI is going to treat those as public safety emergencies and investigate them to try to prevent such violence from taking place in our country.
You know, Caroline, we had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We had the attempted assassination on ICE officers in my hometown of Dallas. And you just obviously just referred to the church. Did this suspect leave any indication that he was trying to target people of faith, more than the obvious of him doing it to a church on a Sunday?
Well, from what I understand, based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI. I think the American people in your audience can be assured. Look at the great work that the FBI did in light of, or in the hours and days following the assassination, on Charlie Kirk's life. That was a successful investigation, and that investigation continues. And that assassin was, of course, being held accountable in the court of law now.
At least two big meetings for the president today. One is going to be with the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, at which time I understand they were setting out a framework to end the Israeli-Hamas war, but a comprehensive peace for the region. I understand, too, I have a pretty good source that says Bibi's on board. So do you expect there's going to be a press opportunity afterwards? I get it. I know you have sources working very close with Hamas, not with them, but they have contacts directly there. How close is Bibi to saying yes? How close to Hamas is saying yes? Have they let you know?
Very close. It is going to be a very busy day here at the White House. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be arriving just behind me in just a few hours to meet with the president and hopefully finalize this peace plan. President Trump and his incredible team have been working so hard since he was inaugurated in January and inherited this mess from the previous Biden administration. And the president met with our Arab partners and allies in New York City when he was at UNGA, to hear them out and understand their concerns. The administration has been in both direct and indirect talks with Hamas throughout this entire process as well. And of course, the president is in constant communication with our friend and ally, Prime Minister Netanyahu. And nobody knows better than President Trump to reach a good deal, a reasonable deal for both sides. Both sides have to give up a little bit and might leave the table a little bit unhappy, but that's ultimately how we are going to end this conflict. It must end at the negotiating table. The president has made it very clear. He wants to see the killing end. He wants all of the hostages released. And that's why Special Envoy Witkoff drafted up this very detailed and comprehensive 21-point plan and has proposed it to both sides. So we hope that both sides agree. That's the president's expectation. That is his hope. And he'd love to see this conflict finally come to an end and to ensure a lasting peace in the Middle East, just like he did in his first term.
Has Hamas responded to the proposal? If Bibi's on board, we know Donald Trump is. What about Hamas?
Well, those discussions will continue to take place today. I know the president will be speaking to our friends in Qatar who have served as incredible intermediaries between the United States and Hamas, and we've had some direct talks with them as well. So that's always kind of the crunch point, right? We get everyone to agree, and then Hamas has to agree as well. And so, again, this is why we've drafted a 21-point, incredibly detailed plan that we know can be and must be agreeable to both sides. The president wants to see to that.
So, Caroline, I know the president is supposed to meet with top congressional leaders today. I've heard that they want more funding for illegals, NPR funding, USAID. That seems like some things that are dead on arrival coming to the White House. What can you tell us?
Let me be very clear about the president and the White House's position. All we are asking for is a common sense, clean funding resolution, a continuing resolution to keep the government open. This is a bill that keeps the government funded at the exact same levels as today, just adjusted for inflation. So there is zero good reason for the Democrats to vote against this, especially when the Democrats have voted for this 13 previous times as recently as March. And so this is the reasonable and common sense thing to do. The president is giving Democrat leadership one last chance to be reasonable, to come to the White House today to try to talk about this. And now is not the time to try to get political points against Donald Trump. Now is the time to do right by the American people and keep the government funded. Our most vulnerable in our society and our country will be impacted by a government shutdown. Everybody knows this, and that's why Republicans and the president want to keep the government open, and we welcome Democrats to join us in that effort.
So, Caroline, the president usually comes in with leverage, or he always has something, whether it's a country or it's a group. So is he having this meeting just to hear them say, I want this, and he's going to in turn come back and say, I'm not giving it to you? I had the meeting and be done with it? Like, what could he give? For example, could he agree not to have any more rescission packages for 6 months? Could he agree to visit some of these things if they fund for the next few weeks? Can you give me an idea of any give and take that might be on the table?
Well, look, Brian, the leverage is in the president's hands because the overwhelming majority of the American public wants to keep the government open. I mean, it's not even close. Democrats and Republicans, independents across the country want the government funded because they want our military and our troops to be paid. They want TSA agents and Border Patrol to be paid. They want food assistance programs for women and children in impoverished communities to continue going out the door. All of that will come to an end if Democrats vote against this clean CR that Republicans are proposing. And might I just add, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are on the record multiple times in their past political lives stating that they too believe a government shutdown is bad. In fact, I quote, Chuck Schumer just last year in 2024 said a shutdown would mean chaos and pain and needless heartache for the American people. Well, we hope that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats won't cause chaos and pain and heartache. We want our country to continue to be funded. We want our government to be open so we can continue doing the business of the American people.
Well said.
Caroline, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline.
Yeah.
Thank
Besides
you.
that, not much happening at the White House today.
Very busy.
Go ahead and continue on with some more news.
President Trump has agreed to a last-minute sit-down with top Democrat leaders Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer ahead of an expected redo of the Senate vote tonight to avert a government shutdown.
The purpose of the meeting is so that the president can assemble the four leaders, the two top leaders in both chambers, to come in and have this discussion. If Chuck Schumer decides and Hakeem Jeffries, Democrats, decide to shut the government down, he's responsible for determining which services are essential, which employees are essential. And that's a big task. It's a burden that can easily be avoided if the Democrats will just apply common sense and do the right thing.
Joining us now to react is Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman, there are still a few issues on the table, but what are the main issues that need to be resolved at that meeting in order to avert a shutdown?
Well, basically, the Democrats have said they're going to vote no, and they want to actually restore health care to illegal aliens. And so that's a big deal. That's a lot of money.
They're not giving health care to illegal aliens.
Something that's antithetical to actually most Americans right now. So that's a big issue. That's their biggest issue right now. And
they need to go back to the
Republicans passed it out of the House, the CR already.
Because the Democrats go with them.
It didn't pass out of the Senate, but all Republicans voted for it. So it just
and
needs a few Democrats to come over and
they
vote
love
for
their
it.
immigrants so much they could go
right
live
now,
with
the Democrats
in their
are trying to leverage everything they can, but they're the ones who are going to cause a shutdown. I got to tell you.
Congressman, what do you think the outcome of this meeting will be?
Well, I think the president's going to tell them, you have military people that we want to make sure everybody gets funded. You have to make sure that federal employees get funded, and they'll be the ones that are going to stop that funding. They're the ones, as Speaker said, they'll be actually stopping and determining who is non-essential, because non-essential people can get terminated or not be paid and sent home.
We've seen this movie before. It feels like we've done this dance every year, maybe multiple times per year. But my question for you, Congressman, is does this time feel different? Because the layperson watching from afar, it feels like the parties are so entrenched this time. And Chuck Schumer is so gun shy from caving the last time that it feels like the parties are not backing down, and we could be in line for a very long shutdown. What do you say to that?
Well, you're right. We actually do an average of 5 continuing resolutions every year for the last 20 years. That's ridiculous, of course. But I think I would say that the Democrats, it seems performative on the part of the Democrats. And I'll tell you why. It's because I think that the shoe's on the other foot now. They're the ones that are going to be the ones blamed for the shutdown. They know they're going to be blamed for the shutdown. And I would say that you might get a 3 to 7 day shutdown. And then they come to the table and say, okay, we're just going to do it. Because in reality, what the Republicans have done is they've said, we're going to give you 7 weeks. We can continue to do the appropriations process during that 7 weeks. We can continue to negotiate, but give us 7 weeks. And the Democrats are saying, we don't want that. We want everything right now. And I think that it's performative on the part of the Democrats, and they'll cave ultimately.
Interesting.
You alluded to it, but Democrats are their demands all center around health care. Can you explain in layman's terms what they're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, what they really want is they want to go back and keep the Obama era, all the funding that was supposed to be temporary due to COVID. So they want to keep all of that, which included giving money to illegal aliens, basically anybody you can make up to $600,000 a year and get subsidies and free benefits for healthcare. That's about $1.5 trillion cost. And that's their main ask. That's the main thing they want.
Before we let you go, you're going to be speaking at a Turning Point event tomorrow at Utah State University. In about 20 seconds, what will your message be to those students?
My message will be similar to Charlie's. Revitalize, refresh, and let's become, if you're a guy, you're a guy, and let's become men. And if you're a gal, you're a woman, let's become women. Let's be grown up, let's be mature. And let's love this country. This country is the best place. And then calling people to God and Jesus. That's what Charlie did.
Well, Utah State University is about 2 hours away from Utah Valley University, so it will be a meaningful event that you are partaking in, indeed. Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you for joining us.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart.
And then I'll take a little break for us to catch up. So here you go.
We don't want to shut down the government, but if Democrats refuse to just pass this clean continuing resolution, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I think the Democrats are going to bear the responsibility for it.
As Vice President J.D. Vance putting the ball squarely in the Democrats' court as Congress faces a midnight deadline on Wednesday to fund the government or shut down. With the clock ticking, leaders from both parties, they're going to head to the White House for a meeting with President Trump later today, but they seem to be digging in their heels. Watch.
Meeting is a first step, but only a first step. We need a serious negotiation.
What the Democrats have done here is take the federal government as a hostage, and for that matter, by extension, the American people.
My colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have behaved not as a separate and co-equal branch of government and a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch.
There is nothing partisan about this continuing resolution. Nothing. We didn't add a single partisan a priority or policy writer at all. We're operating completely in good faith to give more time.
Former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy is here. You've been through many of these shutdown fights. I find them a little ridiculous, a little boring, and a little dumb, frankly, if I'm being honest. And I just thought, surely this is not going to happen again, but here we are. Who has the upper hand here?
Well, the Republicans do, because you got to give credit to Speaker Johnson and the Republicans of the House. They passed a continuing resolution, which to your listeners mean it just keeps government as it's moving, because September 30th is the end of the year for government. The appropriation bills won't be done for later. There's nothing that will change, but it takes 60 votes in the Senate. This all comes down to Schumer, and the only reasons he's doing this is because he can't lead his own base. Remember when we came to this so many months ago, he said he was going to fight it, then he folded, and he had a new book come out, and he couldn't even go on a book tour because he's afraid of AOC. And remember, AOC is a member of Congress, but she raises more money than any other member of Congress. She's from New York. He's afraid she'll run against him.
I don't know why they
all
throw
he's
money at
doing is
AOC.
holding the entire country hostage because he cannot stand up and do the right thing. If I was President Trump, I would only say this inside the meeting. I will negotiate with you after you keep the government open, because they are the only ones who are determining this. They are holding it hostage, like Thune says, and they can have a lot of people laid off because he's afraid politically.
Join me in a look down memory lane, which I think you will probably remember. This is from 2018.
We do not want to shut down the government because you can't get your way.
The last time you shut it down, you got
let
killed.
me say something, Mr. President.
Let me say this. North Dakota.
This
and
is the
India.
most unfortunate thing. We came in here in good faith, and we're entering into this kind of a discussion in the public view.
But it's not bad, Nancy. It's called transparency.
I know it's not transparency when we're not stipulating to a set of facts.
So you remember that. And the other thing that could happen is not only did the White House threaten to basically lay off a bunch of people if the government shuts down, because if they're not essential, then they're not essential. So I think that's a little leverage. But also, Kirsten Gillibrand, a Democrat from New York, is planning a Napa retreat in your home state of California. This is Political Playbook had this for the DSCC on October 13th and 14th. Why does that matter? Because they could be, the Senate Democrats, the Congressional Committee, could be at this fancy, wonderful wine retreat on a shutdown day.
Are you kidding me?
If that were to happen.
Exactly. They would have to cancel that. I mean, but this is all coming down to Schumer. Maybe he plans to open it up right before that so he can raise the money. This is purely a Schumer shutdown. Look, I've been on the other side of this. I remember in 2013, what happens when one party wins the White House for the second term, the party out of power, the base gets very upset. And you walk yourself into something that is not smart. It costs more money. You give the power to the executive branch. President Trump will be even stronger. Again, if I was President Trump, the only thing I would do in this situation is says, I will negotiate with you after you keep the government open, because nothing changes. It's at the end of the year when anything changes. This is simply Schumer. The Democrats are craving a new leader. When you look to Hakeem and Schumer, they are the weakest Democrats I've ever had in leadership. They don't know how to get out of this problem they created themselves in because they only look to themselves. They're not true leaders. And what you're watching is other Democrats rising up around them because they won't lead.
All right, Kevin McCarthy, you get to watch from the sidelines, as we will as well, and observe and get your analysis as it goes forward. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I mean, Earhart. And
It's all political. I know why they don't want to shut the government down. Of course, we don't want to lay off a lot of people and the government not getting paid. Like, that sucks for them. But the problem is that the Democrats want to fund the illegals' medical bills and continue paying for their housing and continue paying for their food. We're not giving any more money to the illegals. If the illegals want, we have a plane ticket for them and $1,000 so they can take their ass right back to their home and stay there. Like, come on, man. Common sense. It's just fucking common sense. And people these days don't have common sense. Their brain cells, I don't know what's going on. I think too much internet, too much like surfing the web. I think the internet was the biggest tragedy to humanity, and it still continues to be. And the easy access to information is what's killing everybody every single day. I think the biggest killer of humanity is the internet. And ever since it has been brought out to the people, you see the rise in deaths. Like, compare our numbers from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And we're at a point right now that is beyond crazy. One thing I gotta say, I blame like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all those tiki-taki TikToks, and whatever you want to like. If all those apps, they're nothing but no good, and people are too sensitive. They're too emotional, and they get offended easily, and then they go out and cause harm to people. And it's like, when is it gonna stop? Right? So let's continue on with some more news, and then we'll share our feelings after.
Anti-ICE chaos erupting outside a facility in Portland, Oregon over the weekend as President Trump vows to use, quote, full force if necessary, sending in 200 members of the National Guard to help quell that violence. And that ICE facility in question has been the scene of nightly protests for several months, and that's plagued local residents there. However, Oregon doesn't want the help. The state attorney general filed a federal lawsuit to block the guard, and the governor chimed in too.
Portland and the state of Oregon believe in the rule of law, and we
I don't know
manage our own local
who they
public
done
safety
this.
needs. There is no
I
insurrection.
don't know if it's a him, her.
There is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city.
So it's not just Oregon. Dozens of federal immigration agents patrolling the downtown area of Chicago. That's after protests erupted at the ICE processing center in the Chicago suburb of Broadview, Illinois. DHS says police have taken guns off the hands of some of those protesters. And Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, well, he's not happy about the deployment.
We received numerous confirmed reports of federal agents from ICE and Customs and Border Patrol abusing their power, intimidating innocent civilians, and waging war on our people. All of this has been aimed at causing chaos and mayhem. This is about sowing fear and intimidation and division among Americans. Our residents and visitors who are shopping and eating are made to feel unsafe by the jackbooted thugs roaming around a peaceful downtown.
Jesse, this reminded me a little bit of scenes we've seen in the past, like in 2020 when you had the protests and people would say, oh, that's mostly peaceful. But in the split screen, you see that it's not. Or during the border crisis, you would have Democrats say the border is secure. Corinne Jean-Pierre saying the border is secure. Meantime, we've got Bill Malugin or Griff Jenkins down at the border and you see the split screen. Of course, there are very nice parts of Portland, but are they denying that that is actually happening, what you're seeing on the screen?
Well, they're saying it's like heads I win, tails you lose. So if Trump sends the guard in and there's a huge clash with Antifa, he's going to say, see, these people are crazy. Thank God we sent these guys in. But if he goes in and it's calm and he can pacify it, he can say, see, I did to Portland what I did to DC. This is working. You know when you drop a popsicle on the ground, Dana?
Yeah.
And all the ants come in and they start eating it and they get stuck in the popsicle. This is what's going to happen in Portland. Every Antifa is going to come out of the woodwork and they're just going to clash with ICE and the troops and they're just going to get arrested. And that's the point. We're going to round these people up. And then when you hit them with federal charges, not these small ball misdemeanors from some Soros DA, they're looking at 20 years. So they're going to snitch on their comrades, their financiers, and we'll be able to roll these guys up pretty well. These are not small crimes. This has been like a 3-month siege at a federal courthouse. They've shot lasers into the eyes of federal law enforcement, blinding them. They've cut out the fiber optics of the building so they have no internet. Arson, assault. They've barricaded the building so you can't get ICE fans in and out of there. It's a big problem. And SCOTUS has already said he's allowed to do this. I don't understand the Democrats with these bad optics. They thought it looked good in LA when guys were waving Mexican flags and torching cop cars, or it looks good when you're against the crime crackdown in DC and that city's like the most peaceful city in the country now. I believe, and Jessica will probably agree with me, they would rather have crime high than give Trump credit for lowering it, because the crime in Portland's been bad. The murders have doubled. Arson's up. Violent assault is all up. And he's going to be going city to city, throughout the entire year, hammering crime, hammering illegal immigration. And what are Democrats going to do?
You need to arrest all
They're going
these
to be
people.
pro-crime, pro-illegal immigration.
That's what they
And
need
they're
to
going to
do.
look dangerous, and they're going to look reckless, and they're going to look stupid. And you can't defend MS-13, criminals, Antifa, late-night millionaires, Comey, while the president is out there defending police, citizens, the military. It's just a bad look, and they're making the same mistakes they made going into the last election.
Jessica, one of the things I talked to my friend in DC, they said that on Capitol Hill, they were walking around the other night, the National Guard was there. Everybody seemed happy with it. The mayor seems to have accepted them. And so that as that works there, if there is proof of concept in other places like Chicago or Portland, will the protests back down?
Well, there's a difference between DC and these other places because Donald Trump is actually in charge of DC. The other states elect their own governments, and they are the ones who are responsible for the health and safety of their citizenry and have a right to push back against a president that has not been invited to send his troops. And he's already been overruled by a court for what he did in Los Angeles, where they said you can send them, but they can only guard that building. So we're going to have a couple hundred National Guard members standing around one building. And that's what it's going to end up being. Or you'll have scenes like we had from Chicago. I'm sure you guys saw a delivery guy went by ICE officers that were standing there wearing masks just in the middle of the day, a nice kind of, fall day in Chicago. And I think he yelled F Trump at them. And then you see them chasing him down the street and he gets away. And that's what a lot of people think is going on here, that it is unnecessary. And that doesn't mean that there isn't a way to work together, maybe on the south side of Chicago. But in Oregon, I trust the AG there who says we have enough people to deal with this. And they have been dealing with it for several months. President Trump and the administration want to normalize militarized cities. They've talked about it. It doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother Jesse. He would, if we walked outside there, he wouldn't be upset if he saw a militarized New York City. But
Kathy
guess what?
Hochul put the guard in the subway, and you didn't have a problem with that,
Kathy
did you?
Hochul is in charge of New York State. Donald Trump is not in charge of Oregon or in charge of Illinois, but he doesn't seem to understand that. And when he floats this emergency power, says, well, I'll call a national emergency. That, to me, my spidey sense goes off. I think back to what happened in the 2020 election when he decided, I won this election, I'm going to do whatever I want in order to stay in power, that he doesn't want to have an election in 2026. He'll say, oh, we're having an emergency. Can't have our normal
What is
voting
she
days.
talking about?
Can't have mail-in ballots.
Thinks he's going to win.
I don't think he thinks he's
Kathy
going to win.
Hochul, let's
You don't
get
believe
Emily
that,
in here
Jessica.
because Kathy
I
Hochul
do.
No, you
sent the guard into the subways for 4 days to check people's, check my backpack. And then that went away because that was about politics. That wasn't about anything other than that.
Which is ironic considering that one of Oregon's arguments is that this situation is a political stunt. If Trump wants to normalize militarizing cities, which I disagree with, libs want to normalize crime. That's what's so frightening about this. The contrast to me is it would be laughable if it wasn't with the collateral damage of a totally destroyed city, of that group of 6 middle-aged women in the sunshine wearing striped sweaters in probably the Northwest District of Portland, and it's sunny and everything's awesome. And you juxtapose that imagery with what we show on our networks, which seem to escape all networks in the Portland area, of showing these federal agents being violently attacked ruthlessly and relentlessly. And the logic and the legality of the local and state officials usurping or pushing back against the usurping of President Trump's executive power only works if they haven't abdicated their duty. Homicide rose 144% since 2020 in Portland. Non-fatal shootings, 241%. And yet the mayor there dismantled their SWAT gun crimes unit. And then he tried to dismantle police responding to violence. And so when park rangers did, they had to call the cops when they had to face freaks with guns and knives. It is a joke that the Oregon state and the Oregon local elected officials seem to think the facts don't support dad stepping in when there is complete chaos with the nanny in the home when the kids are running around destroying businesses. And I feel like when we look at the prosecution rates, right, they are less than, or you could say over 80% that are declined to prosecute on the local level. Oregon thinks that posse comitatus is going to be the motto. The whole point is if you're not taking care of your citizens, state, then the federal government is going to do it for you. And any Portlandian person will tell you that it has been utterly destroyed with businesses and property values and homes, including my own dad who had to move out of the city. So we live the trash every day, all day. Please, President Trump, thank you for sending in someone that actually knows what they're doing.
I just love how the liberals are complaining and crying, saying the local government, local government, while being in sanctuary cities. like local control, while telling people, oh, you don't have to abide by federal law. You can come in here, you can break immigration law, you can hire people illegally in the country, and that's totally fine. And then when the federal government comes in and say, actually, you really don't have the authority to do that, there's something called the supremacy clause, they flood them and they assault the cops there on the ground. Now, remember, this is a party that's defunded the police. We saw that work. Crime soared all over the country. They allow people to just set things on fire, assault cops on a day-to-day basis, demoralize them. And what did the residents get? Now, the people in the poor neighborhoods, they got the gangbangers running the streets because they realized there was an opening. Now you have an establishment of order now in all of these cities. Now, they did have the talking point, oh, they're just targeting liberal states. But then the Republican governors say, actually, we'll take the reinforcement. So they've changed their policy prescription. I love how Trump is doing this. I remember doing the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore, and the mom was watching her son on TV, acting a fool, assaulting cops, throwing rocks, and she left her apartment and ran down there and pulled him by his ear and brought him back home and whooped his tail all the way home. That's what the president is doing right now. Now, when it comes to the election, who do you think the voters are going to stand by? The people that allow the criminals to terrorize them? Now, the Chicago residents, black residents, have been going to the city council meeting for months now, begging the mayor, do something about this. The residents in Portland, get these Antifa people off the street. They're taking people's power. They're setting up encampments. Who wants to needles all over the place? This is not the way to live. Now, if the libs want that going into the next election, have at it.
All right.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interview.
It's going to be a wild time. The next few days is going to be a little wild. Let's continue on with the news.
Chicago yesterday. Federal agents, you see them on Sunday because they had word about illegal immigrant criminals, the worst first, and they're going to scoop them off the streets without any cooperation, obviously, in that sanctuary city. And I'm pretty amazed that the Chicago mayor continues to make ICE as the bad guys. It's a beautiful Sunday, but and we know about operations that are happening in downtown Chicago. We're monitoring it. You're monitoring law enforcement scooping up illegal immigrants in your city, many of which were littered in 2 years ago, were littered in your airports, disturbing everyday life, and you were complaining about. Now guys have come to, and women have come to save the day. And again, no hesitation about the mayor vilifying those men in uniform.
There were at least 50 protesters at an ICE processing center in Broadview, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. 11 violent rioters were arrested outside of the detention center. 2 guns were taken from the rioters who were against the fence at the ICE facility. Yep. And the investigation into some sort of an explosive device found near the ICE Chicago detention facility. And this is the same place last week. 16 were arrested at the facility.
So there's 2 elements to the story. Obviously, the legal aspect. If y'all remember, during the height of the crisis, I went in on the ground and they were taking over the schools, taking over the health centers that they had shut down in the city. And the rival gangs were warring with each other with the illegal gangs that were in the town. You also have a major crime problem, guns within Chicago, illegally in Chicago as well. So I just don't understand why the mayor, I know the residents want more help. You need a presence of law enforcement there, not just for the illegals that are criminal migrants within the country, but the actual criminals that are out there on the day-to-day basis, that are residents that are shooting up the block.
So there's 2 things: get the illegal immigrants off the street, many of which the rival gangs, TDA is rivaling with our American gangs. I know it's insane, but it's happening. Number 2 is, do you realize by pushing back and resisting President Trump's effort to crack down on the city, they're pushing back on the FBI and for ATF that would help them with investigations. So, for example,
when you come in, they don't follow up on the 911 calls. It takes forever to the point where people don't do it. They say, hey, Mr. President, help me out for free. The FBI would go in there. They'd start picking up and investigating these cases, moving forward on the shoplifting, everything else that's going on, and begin to get a hold of that city and make it safe again. Hey, I have news for you, Mayor. You'll benefit from it come election day because people say my life is better. But they are too into politics.
First, it was LA, Donald Trump sending National Guard. Then it was DC. He announced Memphis, and now he's sending them to Portland, Oregon. The president wrote on Truth Social on Saturday, at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists.
So if you guys been following Fox for a while, you know that Portland is a hotbed for Antifa. They allowed them to have that chop zone in that area. People died as a result of that. They set things on fire for years now. You would think that the leaders there would want the help because this has been a growing problem. The residents don't like it at all, but they're angry. Watch.
I communicated directly to President Trump that intervention was not necessary in Portland. The members of the Oregon National Guard are Oregonians, they are our neighbors, they are our friends, they have day jobs, they have lives that are now being upended by the President of the United States. This is a waste of taxpayer money, and we're going to stand together to fight back on this.
I've been able to watch that fortune and courage that is our governor as she speaks to President Trump, and she's giving him leadership lessons, which is what we need so badly.
Leadership lessons from that
She says, Mr. Trump,
person? You crazy?
troops are for those to protect us from our foreign enemies, not Portland, Oregon.
Portland is a mess. You guys are responsible. And when help comes out, you're going to make the bad guys the federal agents, but they're sending 200 National Guards to take over Portland. Portland is now suing back. But these protesters with their nose rings and purple hair are causing havoc in front of federal buildings. That is the reason you call in the National Guard. And you're a national joke. Nobody wants to live there anymore. Nobody works there anymore. The president's there to help. I just hope the administration does a good job letting everybody know what their objective is. It's not to hurt Democrats. It's to help a city.
Also, there's this demonization that's happening with the people that are doing these arrests. By the way, if you notice, there's a lot of Border Patrol out there in all of these locations. Over 50% of the Border Patrol is Hispanic. So you're saying that they hate their own. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's not factual at all. And with the temperature being so high, with them targeting ICE facilities and all that, you would think that the elected officials would want to bring the temperature down since there's assassinations going on right now.
Look, if you're not doing anything wrong, why are you worried about it? They're just going in there. They're taking the violent criminals off the streets that are here illegally. And they broke the law. They've continued to commit crimes. That's why they have records and rap sheets. And they're just trying to clean up these cities. It worked in Washington, D.C.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hot.
Go ahead and let's go over to Sky News. Let's see what Australia thinks of what's going on over here in the United States. This is going to be fun. Let's watch. It is very not that many people. It seems like they just pay these people like $20, $30. We'll stand out here and so forth. Like it seems like it's a crazy time over there. But when the military's out and about, everyone's behaving. Everyone's in good behavior. Nothing happens around when the military is around. Like, the military has been around Washington, D.C., and people are just happy to have them there. I'm happy to have them there. I wish I could just go over to Washington, D.C. for, a day or two and take advantage of the safeness and the beautifulness. I'm going to think about it because I would like to go over there, but to go because I don't want to go somewhere that's like not safe, like New York. Like New York, well, New York City mostly, and some parts of New York State too, because like Rochester is oof, woof, it's horrible.
Portland's Mayor Keith Wilson has responded, saying the number of necessary troops is 0.
It's crazy. They keep putting that music up, so I don't know if it's copyright or not. So that's why I'm pausing that. But this she, I don't know what it is, wants to be the one to tell Trump how to govern.
Directly with President Trump and Secretary Noem, I have been abundantly clear with them that Portland and the state of Oregon believe in the rule of law, and we can manage our own local public safety needs. There is no insurrection, there is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city.
Going back to that damn music shit. Yeah, but what we're seeing,
and I made that very clear to the president this morning. Our city is a far cry from the war-ravaged community that he has posted about on social media. And I conveyed that directly to him. That we got this, we are good, we are doing fine.
We got this, we're good.
And I also said to him, we have to be careful not to respond to outdated media coverage or misinformation that's out there. We know what's happening in our own city, and we are doing just fine.
Imagine if Russia comes with some jets, some fighter jets, and just bomb the shit out of Oregon. I wonder what they're gonna say then. Oh, they hit us.
Ordered apparently the full force of the military into what he called war-ravaged Portland, Oregon. Now, he says that ICE facilities have been under attack. We saw that horrific attack in Dallas the other day. We keep seeing, my media is just full of footage of ICE vehicles being surrounded, ICE officers being attacked, facilities being attacked, facilities under siege. If these cities and states where this is happening don't go along with this, this seems to lead to a real sort of, well, you know, it almost sounds like the Democrats might be having an insurrection, John. And I know we're not supposed to say that about the Democrats, but that's what it feels like.
Well, I think that's the name of the law, isn't it? The Insurrection Act.
Precisely.
So this is a complicated subject. The circumstances under which a president can send military force inside the United States are narrowly circumscribed. And so you have the Posse Comitatus Act, which says normally he can't do it, but there are exceptions. And then you have the Insurrection Act that authorizes him to do it in certain circumstances. I think Trump's strongest case for using federal forces to preserve order is when federal employees and federal installations, federal buildings, and so on are under attack. And that is clearly the case with regard to ICE across the country, and it's clearly the case with regard to ICE in Portland. And so I think Trump has a strong case to send military forces to bring order and to protect these federal employees who are just trying to do their jobs.
It makes you just think, right? It's like that's what we're thinking in Australia of us. Man, we got to get our shit together. I'm telling you, imagine if Russia decides to bring a whole fleet of jets and just bomb the shit out of the West Coast. They bomb Seattle, bomb Portland, Oregon, bomb California. Like, then what they're going to do? They're going to beg on their hands and knees for the military to come. We need all the military. We need everybody. We need all the support. Right. You know, how about there's like riots and crazy riots break out and everybody wants to, like, Antifa do like this huge riots and big uprising, you know, then that's when you're going to call for help Like we could have like pre-coxed this and handled this before it got bigger, but you wanted to wait, and then to get so big and you can't control it, and then you're begging for the National Guard to come. So it's a no-win situation. It's like you damn if you do, damn if you don't. And that's really damn fucked up. Let's check out this one here of Jason A. I want to take a look. I got a lot of feeds, a lot of news. I'm going to be here for a while. This is a lot of feeds that I haven't watched yet. So if you want to watch with me, great. Those who are rewatching, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys so much. I try to bring the news and show you guys what's happening around the world, and not just one set of news, but news from everywhere and what people are talking all around, and the input that I put into my brain, and for me to decide what the fuck is going on. With that said, let's go ahead and check out Jason A.
It's what bothers people about this Palantir thing.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
The Palantir thing is very odd.
Well, you know, Peter Thiel's giving a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist. This is like me doing a 4-part lecture on Long Island racism. Just to show everybody, you know, how much I know about it and how scary it is and how we got to watch out for it. But it's totally not me or anyone I know. It's so strange to have this. You build military AI, military drone, autonomous drone technology to export to war zones all over the world. You build domestic surveillance technology to surveil our friends and neighbors. And then your other pet passion is the Antichrist. It's odd. Wouldn't you include tennis? Wouldn't you go, and I'm big into tennis? Something else. It's odd. And I like ice fishing. I build autonomous drone technology. I build domestic surveillance technology.
And I love lake trout.
And I love lake trout. And I love big mouth bass fishing.
Yeah.
But instead, he goes, and I've also developed quite a keen interest in Satan. And I'd love to.
The Trump administration wants your data, but why? The White House is reportedly teaming up with controversial tech powerhouse Palantir, the data analysis and technology firm co-founded by Trump megadonor Peter Thiel. The purpose? To build a federal database tracking millions of Americans. Supporters say it'll stop fraud and boost efficiency. Critics call it a surveillance nightmare. But what's really happening? And why is this new system sparking so much outrage?
Now, let me explain a little bit, and then I want to ask some questions. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard of Palantir, which is a large data company, has a lot of connections to Elon Musk, to Doge. And in March, Donald Trump issued an executive order that would increase the sharing of all unclassified data between and among federal agencies. It directed agency heads to authorize and facilitate both the intra and inter-agency sharing and consolidation of unclassified agency records. Now, a New York Times report in May outlined in great detail how the president has employed Palantir to carry out this executive order, essentially to merge all data from all different executive branch agencies into one single database. Now, it's unclear who would control that database, who would have access to it, what searches would be done, and there seem to be no guardrails about that. Another New York Times article says that the administration, that this database would have 314 different points of data about every American. Literally every American, 314 various categories of data will be consolidated into one database by a private company, Palantir.
But Palantir, co-founded by Trump ally Peter Thiel, would have unprecedented access to Americans' personal data. That has some employees walking away. The fears go beyond privacy. Critics say the system could be weaponized, used to go after political opponents or vulnerable communities. And once the data's centralized, it's nearly impossible to undo, and it could make it more difficult to protect.
In this case, now, instead of something being segmented, now potentially an entire mass
That's why I
database.
told you,
of
don't trust
virtually the
AI.
entire
Anything
population
could internet could be manipulated. I've been saying
Palantir's
that
contracts
for how
are
many
already
years?
being renewed into next year, but federal agencies have until September to report their data sharing compliance.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle often express concern about government surveillance, about ensuring that we get search warrants in the
Hey,
context of
Stephanie. How you
702,
doing? Hey, Stephanie.
which is a
How you guys doing?
small universe of
Watching a lot of
already
news
obtained
today.
information
What I
that
love.
we know are communications with people of
Love
interest
to myself up
from
with a lot of
foreign
information,
nationalities.
but
Here,
mostly
we
current
just
events.
have every American's data.
But I have good
put
friends like
into
Seven that
one
is very
database
fucking smart, and I love
with
talking to
no
him.
guidelines,
I love
no
talking to him. I can talk
restrictions.
to him for
We
hours.
don't know
Yeah,
what
we have a good
Palantir is
time
doing.
talking.
We don't know what Doge is doing. We don't know what Elon Musk is doing.
Like,
It essentially
there's, like,
creates
moments that I
a
treasure.
one-stop shop for all Americans' data, which, as we're talking about cybersecurity, I'm sure you all agree that creates a tremendous cybersecurity risk if China or Russia were to hack this.
Our next guest is sounding the alarm that Silicon Valley and the West have lost their way. Joining us right now is Alex Karp, Palantir CEO and co-founder. Everything you learned at your school and college about how the world works is intellectually incorrect. And here is a way of seeing the world that may not be right, but it's not wrong. And so trying to be right is very hard, but you can definitely know what's wrong. And what you've been taught in college, that you basically should have no beliefs, that the West is inferior, that the intellectual tradition of the West, it leads to self-flagellation and losing on the battlefield, losing intellectually, losing your party, losing your country, losing your border, that your institutions can't work because we're so good. It's actually wrong. And the West was actually never about that. And you can be good, decent, and win, and be intellectually correct. And what was absolutely spot on about what's in the book is we have this technological revolution. It's no longer fake. 4 years ago, institutions basically thought I'd rather have a good steak dinner and a bad product, and at least I get the steak dinner because the software product doesn't work.
Oh,
now
yeah.
we are in a software-defined world, and the nation that leads software is the USA. And so what does that mean for all institutions?
Money into the
What
market.
it means is institutions have to actually live up to their core mandate. So a country has to have a border. The educational institutions have to work. The military actually has to be scary. You actually can have things function in a way where the outputs are much greater than the inputs. And people who ignore this are going to be washed away. And by the way, you can't talk about it not working because it's a religion. So it's not even, it's a new religion. It's not an old great religion, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. It's a new religion, and the tenets are West is bad, nothing can work. If it works, it's bad, and the West is, and that way of thinking has corroded every aspect of our society. Last not least, it leads to a situation where you get a complete corrosion of all institutions and to a legitimacy crisis. So no one actually believes anyone's an expert. I'll just make this last point. In the 50s, if there was this famous professor, Ken Arrow, and if Ken Arrow said you were smart, you got tenure. And why did that happen? It was because people knew Ken Arrow is smart. The institution he represents is the best in the world. There is no one like, honestly, the only thing like that currently in tech is a Palantir degree. If you work for Palantir, everyone knows you're good. And that's basically, none of these, like when we went to school, the schools actually had credibility. The science was actually science.
I mean, there was nothing in the Biden administration that approximates this collection of data, this opportunity for the government to spy on its citizens. And I'm not even talking about breaking laws under the tax code and sharing tax information with immigration enforcement agencies. I'm not even talking about sharing, the tax information or Social Security Administration information. This is just every piece of data that is out there in the government's control, consolidated with one private company and one database. And so I would ask my friend Chairman Biggs, to think about whether, if you are truly worried about government surveillance, why are we not doing any oversight of Palantir, its contracts with the government, its consolidation of all Americans' personal information into one database?
You know, that's a good one, Jason A. And that's a good upload. It makes you wonder, you know, because AI is very slick, that's for sure, and very smart, learning every day, reading everybody every day. Like my show, like I went to Grok, right? Grok AI, and I just typed on my show. What you see above me right here. See what it says here? My mind over your matter. Well, I just typed that up in Grok. And holy shit, I was given so much information about me and my show. It was very fast. One. Like as quick as that snap. It knew everything and what I was doing and the philosophy and everything from all my psychic work, energy reading, my tarot card readings, like everything was everything. And it makes you wonder what AI is truly capable of. What does AI know that we don't? That's a good question to ask AI. You know? Like, what do you know that us human don't know? And see where it takes you. Because I think AI, like, they infiltrate. You could break through and break in and get information, and you know, because a lot of their answers is pre-installed, you know, and it's like it's not doesn't feel like it really thinks on its own because it keeps fucking up my, like, every time I go in and I put my mind over your matter, you don't understand the amount of mistakes and misspelling and like all I want is my mind over your matter. I don't want to go like an hour looking for proper spelling and proper, like, putting the fucking words like properly. Trust me, it's a fucking headache. If you don't believe me, try for yourself. It's just fucking annoying. And it took me a while to get like the designs back here, and I'm creating designs for the show to keep it fresh every day that I come up on here. But fuck, man, fucking AI is fucking stupid. So it's just stupid. I'm sorry for cursing, but it gets me rage because it's like, why, if I'm putting my mind over your matter, how the fuck are you misspelling what I just typed out for you? Like, this, yeah. Okay, let's see what else we got to watch. We got a lot to watch. But I hope you guys are having a good night. I mean, many of you will hopefully you'll watch what I watch and take what I'm watching. We do have a lot to watch tonight, and I know you can't be here the whole night, but I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. It's just I'm resizing all the ones here that I have here, and then we're gonna just go down the line, I guess. We'll go down the line and we'll watch every single one that I have here until I'm done, and when I'm done, the show's over. How am I off the show? I really don't know. I don't know. But let me set this up. We do have a Benny Johnson to watch too. That's gonna be fun. Benny Johnson's been funny, so yeah, let's go ahead and let's continue on with the news.
So this man with the American flag saw, I don't know if it was my live or another live. You can see him right here. He said he lives close by, and he came down because he saw us getting mobbed. So, like, what a good guy that he would do that. Thank God. He's brave.
Okay, but if you want the war to stop and you want to free Palestine, how come you're not protesting AOC? No, not that.
Oh wait, another truther. This is gonna be good.
So
This person is very flaming,
because he saw us getting mobbed.
very soft.
And he brought his wife with him. It's like so brave of them. It's so brave of them. They decided to stand up and do something. I love it. I love this. So happy to see that.
Oh, you saw it? Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's like. He's not afraid to speak up. That's what I like. And ChatGPT are good with spelling. Yeah, I mean, it's like Gronk. It's like I feel like Gronk is drunk. Or he's drunk and he's like typing out any fucking shit. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I want it a certain way, and I can't fucking get it a certain way because it just doesn't let you. Like, as much as you just want to interject and help the system out, it's like, listen, I want it like this, but it won't do it like that because it's fucking drunk or some kind of drug. I don't know, like an AI drug. What's a AI? What's a good AI drug for AI? You know, it's like it's crazy. The system is like. And then they give you so many images, and then there's like so many misspelled words, and I'm like, what? I typed it out. It's not like I misspelled it. I typed the shit out right. So how is the AI getting it wrong? Like, I'm gonna take screenshots next time, and I'm gonna show it to you guys, and you'll be like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's crazy. It's like super drunk. I don't know, man. They better check on AI. I'm telling you. I have a feeling that whoever's controlling that, I don't know. We gotta evaluate them. All right, let's check out Liberal Hive Mind.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so all morning, I'm sure you guys have followed what's been going on all over social media. The left has been circulating the same photo of Thomas Sanford over and over again, a picture from 2018 of him wearing a Trump shirt. And immediately, they're all branding him a right-wing extremist, claiming, oh, MAGA's on the defense right now. MAGA's silent, as this photo now proves definitively that he was one of theirs, another right-wing crazy committing an extremist act of violence under the banner of MAGA and Donald Trump. But of course, this was utterly disingenuous. We tackled that in the last video. For all of these clowns to be rushing, making this political before we even knew the motive, when obviously it made no sense. I mean, why would he be attacking a Mormon church under the MAGA banner? Seems quite counterintuitive. And from the start, I've been saying the same thing. Just wait for the facts. Everything pointed to this being a personal vendetta, not some MAGA terror plot. And now, well, the left
It does make
totally
videos,
exposed
but
itself
man,
once
is it
again
bad
as
with
being
spelling.
utterly and
Oh my
disgustingly
God.
disingenuous and dishonest. The latest report is now confirming that this was, in fact, a targeted anti-Mormon attack. So I guess the same thing like we saw with Tyler Robinson, right? I wonder when we're going to start getting apologies from these utterly malicious and dishonest leftists, as if that's ever going to happen. But anyways, let's stick to the facts here. Let me show you guys exactly why this happened. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so we now have a clip that's circulating all over the internet where a Burton City Council candidate by the name of Chris Johns recalls having an interaction with the shooter just days prior to him committing this horrible atrocity. Take a look.
Make the statement like that Mormons are the Antichrist, which is a shocking statement. And again, this is somebody you're just meeting for the first time. There was anger. I mean, it was a long-standing anger that I'm speculating, but what he did took planning. It also took real motivation and real anger to ultimately do what he did.
And now John's in that. He said that there was nothing in that conversation besides some elevated language, some pointed language towards the LDS community here. He said nothing rose to the level where he felt he needed to report that conversation. Now, since this tragedy happened on Sunday, he has been in contact with the FBI and also with the Michigan State Police here. We want to wrap you up, Omar, to bring everyone up to speed on what's happened. 4 people are dead. 8 others are injured. Today, we saw a person in a red vehicle drive through this barricade on the other side here. You can see they've added these hardened barriers in place now after that happened. A man was arrested. Photos appear to show what looks like a long gun inside of the front seat of that vehicle. We know that person, a 21-year-old, is under arrest. Not sure just yet on the charges that he's facing. Investigators still working to determine this motive. We know ATF is bringing in a team of renowned specialists to work on this case. That church still being searched through, combed through by those investigators. We know that the FBI is continuing on in their investigation, and we do have it confirmed now that 3 improvised explosive devices were found here, Omar.
So there you have it. I mean, that is likely the motive. In an interaction with Chris Johns, he called Mormonism the Antichrist and grilled Johns on the LDS doctrine, echoing what Johns described as standard anti-LDS talking points that float around social media. We're also learning a little bit about Sanford's backstory, his personal relationships. Information has now surfaced that he apparently at one point lived in Utah and had been in a relationship with a Mormon woman. And according to Johns, in multiple reports, Sanford said that her family pressured him to cover his tattoos, to adopt church practices, which he resisted. The Daily Beast framed it as a failed relationship that may have fueled his bitterness towards the LDS church. And while law enforcement hasn't yet confirmed how much that influenced his actions, well, I'd say the combination of outspoken hostility and personal grievances is now probably the central focus in terms of a possible motive. Caroline Levitt also seemed to confirm that that's what the FBI's thinking is.
From what I understand, based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI.
And so the facts that we have so far is that this was a targeted attack against Christians. And yes, Mormons are Christians. Or I guess you could say a targeted attack on a Christian sect. And yet again, here we go, dealing with the left and their utter dishonesty and narrative manipulation. They did the same thing they did post Charlie Kirk shooting. They tried turning it on us dishonestly. Before there was even a shred of evidence, they were running memes and tweets and edited photos to push this as a right-wing terrorist narrative. And it's funny because for years they've called us conspiracy theorists and misinformation artists. But here they are, yet again exposed, doing exactly what they've accused us of doing. This is the malicious, dishonest leftist playbook. Grab an out-of-context photo, grab the voting record, some out-of-context scrap that you can find on the internet, and then scream MAGA terrorism, or just straight up invent things or Photoshop things like they did with Tyler Robinson. They do it every single time because they just cannot admit the uncomfortable reality that their own side has a radicalization problem and has clearly normalized political violence. They're on the defense and they're acting in the most despicable manner possible instead of acknowledging the fact that they have a problem. They'd rather engage in this despicable whataboutism, but what they point to time and time again is a hoax. From Jussie Smollett to this, time and time again. Hoax after hoax. Jussie Smollett staging his own hate crime. That was proof of MAGA terrorism all over the country. Let's not forget Bubba Wallace's garage news hoax. It's constant phony stories or misrepresentations of MAGA attacks, these false equivalencies, disgusting, dishonest, malicious plays that collapse the second the facts come out. And now here we go again. Sanford's case here was twisted into yet again another false flag to smear the right, and it's totally and utterly backfired on them, at least to those paying attention. Unfortunately, not everybody is getting good sources of information, so there's probably a lot of people who have now been severely misinformed and believe that this was yet again another MAGA attack, just like A good chunk of the population, we're talking millions of people, still believe a Groyper and a MAGA terrorist killed Charlie Kirk. They're the side of fake news, of misinformation, side of conspiracy theories. In fact, it seems they're addicted to hoaxes and conspiracy theories. They need them to keep the narrative alive. They have to live in some alternative reality that constantly confirms their bias because, well, reality would completely collapse their worldview. They live in this fragile little bubble where they keep telling themselves, they keep feeding themselves false information that the right is the side of violence. It's obvious that fantasy that they live in cannot survive after contact with reality. But the truth is, the truth remains, despite what these pathetic studies suggest, that left-wing violence is rampant. That their activists are the ones that are shooting people based on political causes. MAGA people don't do that. There isn't a single example, a MAGA-motivated political assassination. It does not exist. Despite what they tell you, and no amount of lying and misinforming about the Melissa Hortman situation will change that fact. Meanwhile, there's so many actual assassinations and assassination attempts coming from literal radical leftists who do it explicitly for left-wing causes. And they, of course, cannot accept that, and so they cling to these hoaxes. They cling to the false flags and the fabrications. They have to, because without the lies, without the fake narratives, the reality would be shattered. The whole house of cards comes falling apart, and I guess they'd rather live in delusion. There's no MAGA motive here, and anybody telling you otherwise is a complete con artist. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right, let's go to Benny Johnson. Let's jump right to it. It's going to be good.
What's up, guys? Benny. The NFL was already off to a rough start this season with multiple green dildos hitting the field. The ref engaging in what is just an occupational hazard here in America's wokest sports league that still includes the Kelsey brothers. So it's probably who dropped the dildo here. Nonetheless, the NFL continues to drop the ball and prove itself to be the wokest sports league in America with the idiotic decision to hire somebody who hates America, hates the Trump administration, campaigned for Kamala Harris, doesn't even sing in English, to be the Super Bowl halftime performer, someone named Bad Bunny. I don't know what a Bad Bunny is because I'm not a club rat from South Miami, but, you know, apparently Bad Bunny is a thing. What is a Bad Bunny exactly? Bad Bunny is a Spanish language rapper who doesn't even rap in English. He's a Puerto Rican rapper. That means he's an American, by the way. Puerto Rico is part of America. He has an American passport.
I'm Puerto Rican too,
he's
but
the
I was
king
born in
of
Miami.
Latin trap. Got it. So what exactly does Bad Bunny do? I'm not cool, so I like just listen to Johnny Cash. That's like it. So what, like maybe Bad Bunny has all these bangers out here. You ever heard about it? He has a hit song called Soy Peor. You ever heard of it? No? How about I Like It or Mia? You ever heard of that? Any of these like favorites? You spin these during Christmas in your household? Anybody like ever heard of anything he's ever done? No. Nobody knows who this is, and well, nobody really cares, except for the NFL, who's decided that in this current time period where the country is swinging wildly culturally to the center right, wishing to reestablish American culture here, you're going to hire a guy who literally is on the record talking about how he's not going to be playing any shows in America. I kid you not. The NFL chose Bad Bunny to perform at the Super Bowl, despite the fact that he recently said that he would not perform in the continental United States because he's scared of ICE deporting illegal aliens.
We're performing in the U.S. again. I'm scared that ICE might raid the venue outside my show. And honestly, I can't risk the safety of my fans like that. Mainland America just doesn't feel necessary to me anymore. I've already performed there plenty of times. Fans in the U.S. have had lots of chances to see me live. That being said, I still care deeply about my Latino and Puerto Rican fans living in the States. Seeing me perform in Puerto Rico is always an option. That's why in my upcoming world tour, there are no stops in the continental U.S. This isn't about hate, it's about responsibility and respect. I want my Latino and Boricua fans to understand that you're always in my heart. You can come see me in Puerto Rico or catch me in one of the other countries I'm visiting, but I can't, in good conscience, keep putting you at risk just to perform in the mainland U.S. I know for a lot of people, this feels like a sacrifice. So I want my stage to be a place of unity, my music.
It is a sacrifice because ICE probably would get record deportations at a Bad Bunny show, but nonetheless, the NFL has hired someone who doesn't want to perform in the United States for fear of ICE raids. So the Super Bowl is going to be in Los Angeles,
in the United States.
So I guess there could still be plenty of ICE raids there. But you are performing in America. You are an American, by the way, you prick. Like, you were born in Puerto Rico. You live in Puerto Rico. You live with the lavishes of the American taxpayer. Puerto Rico is utterly a propped up American territory state that lives completely off of American welfare tax dollars and military protection.
Yep.
So you ungrateful rat doesn't want to perform in America, but claims to like love Puerto Rico so much. Dude, you have an American passport. Show me your passport. Is there like some type of like special Puerto Rican passport? No, you're an American, dude.
It's an American passport.
It's like insane. If they were to deport you, they deport you to America because that's what Puerto Rico is, American territory. He is smart though, because ICE did raid a Gavin Newsom rally in Los Angeles. So maybe ICE will raid the Super Bowl. This is footage you can remember this. Gavin Newsom had like a miniature rally with like 7 people there.
They probably will. ICE will probably be out there.
This is like hysterical. That this is the ICE raid of the Gavin Newsom rally. So there is some merit in like not wanting to perform in America because there would be an ICE raid because like that would absolutely happen. Bad Bunny stokes MAGA fury with defiant message after being chosen for the Super Bowl halftime show. I thought you weren't going to perform in America, bro. Wow. You're not going to. Oh, look, there's my tweet. I love it when that happens. Bad Bunny was just announced as the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show. Massive Trump hater, anti-ICE activist, no songs in English. And he canceled his entire U.S. tour because effing ICE would be outside of my concert. Yep. True. Proud to be part of this article. Great. This tweet, though, has been seen by 5 million people. It's a banger. Thanks. Thanks, Daily Mail. Bad Bunny is the Super Bowl halftime show.
What the hell?
This is Bad Bunny. This is who
what the fuck is that?
This is what a Bad Bunny is. Again, I don't listen to this music. Like, the NFL is woke garbage.
No,
Creed denied yet again.
Horrible.
Disgraceful. This is
I'm not a. Bad Bunny's all right. It's just he has gone to the dark side.
Bad Bunny sitting on a NFL goalpost.
He's gone to the dark side, and I can't follow him
with a hat on.
You know, the Kardashians. Anyone taps into the Kardashians,
great job, guys.
And
they're getting ratioed for this too, by the way.
Big time devil worshippers.
Not good.
And they
the correct answer was Metallica, and nothing else matters. That's right.
And he's tied in with it.
Again, this dude wears
make him wear dresses.
Is a real creepy guy. He's an anti-ICE weirdo. No fan league is at it again.
That's the NFL. That's degrading.
I mean, the following racist comment: I highly doubt the types of gringos I don't F with listen to me. Those were all the people at the Super Bowl who were pissed off about how Latino the halftime show was. Well, as a Latino myself, when he says gringo like this, it's absolutely racist. Why is the NFL inviting somebody who seemingly hates white people to the Super Bowl? Saying like, let's get Bad Bunny canceled. People think the NFL chose Bad Bunny because they're woke.
I don't know why
he has a huge foreign fan base and they want football to expand globally.
I mean,
his choice is all international globalization.
It's more, she's more cleaner.
Wrong, right?
You know?
Oh, fun. No songs
I don't
in
know
English
why she didn't
allowed
get
at America's highest rated television event of the year, says Danica Patrick, quoting our tweet. Hi, Danica. How you be doing? It's going to be the first time an NFL is forced to change the halftime show performance. The backlash over Bad Bunny is insane. It is the #1 trend in the world right now. Bad Bunny performing. The concept of refusing to perform in the U.S. to protest against ICE and then agreeing to do the Super Bowl is really special. The NFL doesn't know who its target's audience is. That's exactly right. Joe Consta saying, I just want to predict this right now. If the NFL caves and pulls Bad Bunny due to overwhelming backlash, legacy media and Democrats are going to turn him into the next Jimmy Kimmel. Santa Clara, the home of the Super Bowl, is where Metallica lives. It's where their their hometown is Santa Clara. Why not have Metallica? Duh. Yo, Ice.gov, can you pretty please make sure that you have tents at all four corners of the Super Bowl ground? Bad Bunny hates ice. Maybe he will voluntarily withdraw his performance. Yeah. California is
That
excited to
money
welcome you to
is
the
too
Super Bowl.
good. That's the reason why he's coming back to the
Bad
United
Bunny
States.
slams ice, refuses
The
to
only
perform in
reason
the
why.
U.S.
Because he
And
said he wasn't
the
going
Super
to do
Bowl
any
is
more
like, yes,
concerts here.
please, perfect halftime show. You know who picks the halftime show for the Super Bowl? Jay-Z.
Ew.
Jay-Z and his spirit cooker, Marina Abramovich, Satanist. Jay-Z and his Rock Nation company picks the Super Bowl performer. Why is that exactly? Shouldn't like the NFL pick it, or like people who are in touch with the NFL and their audience? Seems like a pretty radical decision here.
Weird.
Bad Bunny pick does make sense though now. Obama's left-wing friend Jay-Z runs the Super Bowl selection process for the halftime show through his company Rock Nation, which has an exclusive contract from the NFL. This is why this is who chooses the halftime show. America's most watched musical performance. And this tweet aged really well. All these white people mad about Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. I hope next year they get Bad Bunny performing in Spanish. You know what? Got to respect it. Got to respect someone who just calls it. Unless you're a 23-year-old club rat from Hialeah.
Oh, from Hialeah.
Gonna suck.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a
Shocking
minute.
video of
Wait a
satanic
minute. Hold on. I gotta go back. No way. Listen to this. This is crazy. Unless you're a 23-year-old club rat from Hialeah, the halftime show is gonna suck again. I lived in Hialeah. This is in Miami-Dade County. I graduated from Hialeah High School. That it's funny. It is posted on Benny Johnson's show. Oh, what are the chances of that happening, right? And I'm doing a live show, and some kid comes and puts out a text. Some guy puts out a text. Some club rat from Hialeah. Shit, that would have been me if I was 23, if he was talking to that type of club rat. But I never was into like that, like to follow someone or like be a stalker type of thing to any like celebrity and stuff like that. No, I've had people I known celebrities. You know, it's just popularity. That's all it is. Like the celebrities, and I ran into a few of them in my life, and I'm like, they're no different than any other person that I come across. You know, if you got something good to say, so say it. If you got, then keep moving along. You know, it's just, to me, I don't be like, oh my god, that's Sylvester Stallone. Like, oh my god, that's Alonzo Mourning. Danny Ainge. That's who's that? That's Tim Hardaway. That's Shaquille O'Neal. I used to see him all the time. I used to see him every fucking weekend. Like when they were in town, especially at that time, Shaquille O'Neal was with the Orlando Magics, and he used to come to the Coconut Grove. I worked there. I was a flagger for a parking garage there, and it was good working there. That was one of my first jobs. Like I was 17 years old, and my friend's mom was working at my friend's mom was working at a garage in Coconut Grove, and it's an underground garage, and they needed some flaggers, right? So her son was working there, and then he was like, well, maybe, I have some friends, maybe I can ask them if they want to come and work over here. So my friend comes and asks me, he's like, yo, you want to work over at the Grove and make some money? We'll take you and we'll bring you back. I was like, how long and how much. It's like, it doesn't pay that much, but it pays good. It was like, I forgot how much it was that I got paid, to be honest with you. But the best part was when we didn't have parking in the garage, right? And you have Alonzo Mourning pulls up in his car, and he asks me, "Is my parking available?" And he has $300, three $100 bills, and he goes like this to me and gives it to me. And I'm like, "Your parking's always available." He's like, "That's my man." All right, open the gate, let him in. Alonzo Mourning had his parking space, and I make sure throughout the night that nobody takes that spot, because I call it in. I was like VIP 1, or for him it was 3-3. So I was like VIP 3-3, and I communicate with another flagger that's within the underground, because it was like 5 levels underground. So his level was level 3. So, and that was by the club. There was a club there on the 3rd floor. I forgot the name of the club, but it was kind of like the garage, and then right there's the club, and then the VIPs get in. So he had his parking space, and the flagger goes, take the cone out, and Alonzo will park his car. That's Alonzo Mourning. He was the center for the Miami Heat. I'm gonna take care of him. I live in Miami at that time. He was the fucking star player. So hello. He didn't even have to ask me twice. He pulled out that $300. He already knew he was gonna give it to me. So he gave me $300, and he was like, "All right." He's like, my parking space is available. I was like, "Yeah." And I called it in, and they're like, "Yeah, send them now." All right. Yo, have a good night. He's like, "All right, man, thank you." And he's like, "When I come out, I see you, I'm gonna give you some more." I was like, "What?" He's like, and he did. He came back. He gave us another. It was like another $300. He gave us. So it was like a total like $600 that came out of that night. I was so happy because he hooked up not only me but the other flagger with the who directed him to his spot. He hooked him up too. So he was a good tipper. It was good at 17, $600. I was happy. I was happy. All right, let's keep it up with Benny Johnson here. He's hitting the Bad Bunny pretty hard. And it's true. He talked really bad about the United States. He said that he didn't want to perform here anymore. He's not performing here. Like, none of his war tour, the United States is not part of it because of ICE, and that he's afraid that his fans are going to get taken by ICE at his concert. He's not wrong about that. I'm just saying, if they get him, they get him. You gotta find any way, any means, anyhow. So Bad Bunny's not wrong about that, but he submitted and he bowed down because the NFL, and not only the NFL, because the money. It's all about the money. When you hear the ching ching and the millions and millions of dollars this little kid's gonna do, 15, 10-minute halftime show. He's gonna be paid very handsomely well, and that's it. And then he goes back to his little world tour. He's gonna make his money. He knows that. Around the world, he's gonna make his money. Like he said, he don't need the United States. The United States don't need him. We could save that money that far, like $400 or $500 ticket per seat per person. If you go with like a group of 5, you're gonna come out like almost like $3,000, $4,000 in the tank just to listen to Far Away and just to see this little stick body moving around the stage. That's it. A couple of fireworks, a couple of like fire in the air, and there you go. That's why I don't go to concerts. It's just too many people anyways. It's just I'm too claustrophobic, and being around too many people like that, it's just not good for me. But let's go ahead and let Benny finish up this segment here.
Club Rat from Hialeah. The halftime show is gonna suck again.
Graduated from
shocking video of satanic performances by Puerto Rican rapper. Booked to the halftime show. This is nakedly evil and totally unacceptable, and it's time to boycott.
That's funny.
So here we go. Bad Bunny show felt demonic, and they're saying that it did. Here we go. I mean, it does look like some weird occult stuff here, doesn't it? Right? Straight up Stanley Kubrick level. Like,
crazy.
Look at that. Like the skulls, the masks.
What the hell is this?
Like, I cannot. So this is like his concert. Is this supposed to going to bring the Super Bowl?
What is this?
Like bring like demon dances and Nosferatu to the Super Bowl? Like super Illuminati cult stuff? I mean, we know that you got to do this. You know you got to do this stuff, right? In order to like become famous. Obviously, you have to do your initiation with the cults and the Illuminati, people who actually run Hollywood. But goodness gracious. Yeah, this is Bad Bunny. There you go.
Oh Lord.
Just cross-dressing. It's not a female dancer. That's Bad Bunny cross-dressing, wearing a dress.
What the
Humiliation
hell?
ritual. This is what they do to all male rappers. It's like
crazy.
The price of fame. Ha ha ha, football gay, WTF. Right? There you go. Here's your football halftime performer. Here's your football halftime performer. Yes, this is Bad Bunny. This is the backup dancer. This is the Bad Bunny rapper. This is the male rapper.
What the hell?
Right here. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, it's your league to destroy, I suppose. We'll see what the fans have to say about it. It's number one trend in the world, but it's definitely on brand for this NFL season. Let's just say that. Like, at the very least, there is a very specific NFL brand, and this is it. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe, and don't watch the woke NFL.
We're gonna watch more Benny, I think. We got another episode here, so let's watch. Hopefully I can get a start.
But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Oh Lord, what are they eating? I don't know.
Damn, that was good.
No way. They're eating Tylenol. Oh,
What's up, guys? Benny, we were kind of the cheerleader to get Jimmy Kimmel canned and taken off air for his despicable comments about Charlie Kirk after Kirk's murder. And the reason why we led that charge was because Jimmy Kimmel is a filthy liar. Not only did he lie about who killed Charlie Kirk, saying that it was the MAGA movement that did it, but he also lied when he came back to TV by weeping and crying and blubbering on his knees. He literally sobbed the entire 20-minute monologue. Now, beyond just this being a bad look for you as a man, this is a bad look when you take the totality of what Jimmy Kimmel has said and done on this topic. When Charlie Kirk was first shot, killed, his wife widowed, and his children orphaned without their father, Jimmy Kimmel didn't cry. Jimmy Kimmel had no tears for that. Jimmy Kimmel used that as an opportunity to attack Charlie and his movement. Wouldn't that be the scenario to cry about? Wouldn't you be crying then? Why are you now just crying? Because Jimmy Kimmel's career is at stake, and Jimmy Kimmel's crying for himself. That's what's happening. These tears are not for Charlie Kirk or Erica Kirk or the Kirk family. They're for him. And well, Jimmy Kimmel's career, which was already on the rocks, remains so. And Jimmy Kimmel's ratings have plummeted 70% since returning. Jimmy Kimmel has a absolute and total collapsed show once again. He did have a lot of people tuning in order to see what he's going to say. Obviously, it made quite a stir when Jimmy Kimmel was taken off air. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he's back. But once the little pop fizz of drama fizzled away, then so did the audience. Jimmy Kimmel won for now. ABC reinstated the late night hosts early after a suspension, and affiliates started putting the show back on the air. Station owners are saying that they wanted leverage over ABC and so on and so forth, but then they could cancel each other. It could be really ugly. So anyway, they're just going to put Jimmy Kimmel back on air. Nobody really watched anyway. This is, however, really a moot point because Jimmy Kimmel's ratings have once again fallen directly into the trash can. Still, Kimmel's long-term future with ABC remains in question. For those wondering if Kimmel could retain his newfound momentum, his ratings suggest no. While Wednesday's average of 2.4 million was ahead of Kimmel's norm of like 1 million, it marked a 70% drop from the record 6 million that showed up to watch his groveling non-apology. CNN media analyst Brian Stelter badly wants Jimmy Kimmel to notice him, touting Kimmel's YouTube numbers this morning, not his television audience. Kimmel's show will almost certainly drop back below 2 million next week. We'll be watching. And that means it's performing well below the mean. Jimmy Kimmel's making around $17 million a year, has a large staff. The show's production in LA is costing a fortune. CBS was losing $40 million a year on Stephen Colbert's show, and it did better. It did better in the ratings than Jimmy Kimmel. So yeah, you can see a nightmare here. Look at this. Look how well Gutfeld does in comparison to all of them. Like you actually have to add all of these three together to get Gutfeld's ratings on an average night. So yeah, whatever goes around comes around. What goes up must come down. Jimmy Kimmel's not happy. His big comeback isn't so big after all. Lost 70% of his viewers. Jimmy and the network thought he'd be a free speech martyr, but actually we all are aware that the only person martyred was Charlie Kirk. Jimmy Kimmel was only getting 129,000 viewers in the key demographic. I can post a picture of a cat and get more views than that. Yes. Yes, you can. Jimmy Kimmel was getting 129,000 viewers in the key demo. This is like viewers under the age of 50 years old. That's what the key demo is called. Those are the views that advertisers want so desperately. And he was barely able to crack like what we regularly get for views per video. You know, we do this like dozens of times a day. And we do it with like a dozen people, like total at the entire company, right? And doing every single job, everyone doing multiple jobs at the company. How much staff does Jimmy Kimmel have? We have like just this teeny little studio. Like how big is Jimmy Kimmel's studio? How many resources are poured into this? And we probably do 10x Jimmy Kimmel's views per day across platforms. The whole world's upside down, man. I mean, the whole world's upside down, totally broken. Jimmy Kimmel lost 70% of his viewers from 6.4 million to 2.4 million. I expect Kimmel to be back below 2 million on Monday. We'll see. Left-wing media like Variety called Jimmy Kimmel's return one of the most massive television moments of the decade. And his ratings went down 70% in one day. That's pretty embarrassing. Yep.
That's a nosedive.
Yeah. It's bad out there. The left can understand why he was fired. It sucks. It has nothing to do with President Trump. What I think is weird about all this is that, you know, the model is clearly there. with Greg Gutfeld. Like the model is there with Greg's show. Greg's show, again, does the kind of numbers and does them consistently. Doesn't need like a massive national scandal to get viewers. Does them consistently. And what does he do? Well, he's actually funny. And he jousts and jabs left-wing comedians, left-wing politicians, left-wing culture figures. He gives the audience the exact thing that they're not getting from any of the other shows. I'm not saying never make fun of a Republican. I'm saying, like, could you book a Republican and like humanize them a little bit? And could you make fun of the left? Of course they can't. They won't. But that's not the world that I grew up in. I grew up in a world with like Jay Leno doing exactly that. Kind of roasting both sides, not overtly political, just like cracking a joke here or there. And Jay Leno would always have on left and right, and that doesn't matter. What's what made him a legend. I think David Letterman would do that, and Johnny Carson certainly did that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they've lost. And that's why they're all getting destroyed by Greg Gutfeld. You know who else isn't buying it? It's Charlamagne the God. This is a big-time left-wing podcaster and radio guy, and he says he doesn't like it. He doesn't buy it. Here we go.
I didn't like the tears.
God damn.
You know why I didn't like the tears?
What? You thought they were fake?
Because he cried when he mentioned Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
He didn't cry 2 weeks ago or a week ago when he got...
I think he was crying that people thought he would celebrate the death of. Yeah. Like, that is what hurt him. Is like, how would you think I'm that kind of guy?
Yeah, that's how... He should have said that, though. No. I feel like he should have said that because it felt like he was just trying to do some performative emotion.
If he's that good of a crier on command, he should act.
I mean, he has that. He was acting forever.
The Man Show wasn't acting, dude. I'm talking about Jesus Christ.
It was acting.
No, it wasn't.
The Man Show?
It wasn't acting. That was
you think that's just what he was in his life?
That was a talk show.
That's just where he was in his moment. But no, he used to do sketches and stuff like that. Okay. He pretended to be Karl Malone for God's sake.
That's true. That was great. For him. He should have got an Emmy for that.
That didn't bother me none. But my point is, I felt like when he was getting emotional, he was doing that to show like the other side. Hey, I do care. You know, and then he did like the apology, not an apology. You thought he said, I'm sorry. That's how the tone sounded.
Yeah, the tone felt apologetic.
But he never said, I'm sorry.
No, let's keep on with the news.
The children, for sure.
Absolutely. You're for the kids.
So you're pro-life?
I am pro-life. I'm pro-choice.
What about protecting the children? They're deporting criminals, people who shouldn't be in the country.
Criminals, honey.
If you come here illegally, you're a criminal.
I think you're just trying to be divisive right now.
Social media content creator Savannah Craven Intow has gone viral for her bold man-on-the-street interviews. But look at this shocking encounter.
You just don't understand the magnitude of having a child. Yeah, well, I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused. That's not the point. What I'm saying. That's really.
What's wrong with you? Well, we're now learning the case against her attacker has been dropped because the Manhattan DA's office missed a key filing deadline. Savannah is not backing down. She's still taking on tough conversations rooted in her faith, and she joins us now. Hey, Savannah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That video was horrific to watch. What happened? Why didn't this case go through? Why was it dropped by the DA's office?
Yes, well, Alvin Bragg District Attorney's Office, infamous for its two-tier system of justice, they favor criminals over victims. And what happened with this is they put just a simple law school graduate in charge of my case. He's not even a member of the New York Bar. And this happened under the ability of a student practice rule. And what they did is they failed to file a certificate of readiness. So because the evidence was not presented, it timed out within that 90 days.
Was that on purpose?
I believe it was. Alvin Bragg's office is known for being liberal. I mean, look at what they've done to Daniel Penny. Could they really afford to prosecute a pro-abortion supporter?
This is the statement from the DA's office. Every victim deserves their day in court, and our office has reached out to apologize to Ms. Craven for the unacceptable error of missing the discovery deadline. We are taking immediate internal steps in light of this case. They didn't even contact you. How did you find out this was dismissed?
Yes. So unfortunately for me, I have had to watch my attacker's Instagram stories for the past 6 months because I couldn't depend on the DAs to do it. And on July 23rd, I'm watching her story and she puts on there, "Thank goodness my lawyers were able to drop my case, no charges." And I reached out to the DA and I said, how could this be possible? All of the evidence was there. I mean, the full 20+ minutes video of us talking, her attacking me unprovoked, and you guys dropped this case. It was shocking.
Tell me a little bit about your platform. You're very young. You're in your early 20s. Are you nervous to go out there to do man on the streets again?
Man, that's
and talk about your
crazy.
platform.
Yes. So I have a YouTube channel called Her Patriot Voice, where, like you said, I go out into the streets, mainly to liberal events. And I try to talk about current events, ask people's opinions, and see how they'll react to a Christian conservative woman, a difference of opinion. And most of the time I'm met with a lot of hate, a lot of rudeness, and obviously people being violent. And it just goes to show right now in our country, we are experiencing leftist violence, political violence at an all-time high. And it has to be shown. Because people always say, the left always loves to say, oh, you know, January 6th, it's the conservatives that are all violent and they're hurting people because they have different beliefs. But I am proving that it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, we have to stop this violence. We saw what happened with Charlie Kirk. I know his movement meant a lot to you. What do you think about what happened to Charlie Kirk? And talk about your faith too, because I'm interested in that.
Yes. Well, of course, it's incredibly disturbing. I mean, Charlie is somebody who I had met and spent time with multiple times. He was a huge supporter of mine, told me way back when I was 19 at one of my first Turning Point USA events, like, you should work in media. And Charlie wanted to create conversation. That's exactly what I'm trying to do on my platform. And all speech is protected under the First Amendment, even speech that's sensitive, even speech that you might not agree with. But instead of walking away, turning the other cheek, people like my attacker and so many other people on the left decide to choose violence. Charlie Kirk was murdered because he was making a difference. He was reaching out to the young people. He was making people think. He wasn't just pushing his narrative onto people. He genuinely welcomed everybody up to the microphone. And his crime was just speaking his mind. And that's where we're at as a country right now. It's tragic, and this is not how America should be.
It really is. But he said his message, his mission was to get heaven full. And so many people have come to Christ as a result. Thank you so much for being strong and being bold.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.
Charlie was important for a lot of people. He was a really, really big influencer for sure. Let's go ahead and go to some more stuff here. Let's check this out.
New today, Denmark is now reporting a wave of Russian drones spotted over military and civilian sites. It is calling on NATO for security assistance. France, Germany, and Sweden sending in reinforcements to the Danish capital, including troops, radar systems, and anti-drone technology. Russia deployed similar incursions over Poland, Romania, and Estonia in recent weeks. Meanwhile, Russia hitting Ukraine with another deadly drone attack over the weekend, launching more than 600 drones at Kyiv. At least 4 people were killed. Dozens others were wounded. Ukraine's President Zelensky now warning other European countries Vladimir Putin is looking for another country to attack. Joining me now from Brussels live is U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, thanks very much for being here. This is getting wider and worse. I spoke with the president of Poland last week when he was in New York, President Karol Nawrocki, and he told me this about the drones he saw over Poland. Watch. Poland shot down Russian drones after Russia's airspace violation. How many drones have you witnessed, and what is your reaction to this?
We are talking about 21 drones. We have no doubt that this action had been planned by the Russian Federation. Surely this was not a mistake. Our eastern border is under the migratory pressure, so we are in the midst of a hybrid war. The Baltic Sea, which joins a couple of European countries, is a place where there are regular provocations carried out by the Russian side now. we witnessed the violation of our airspace. So we can say that this is a regular testing of Poland's defensive capabilities and of the whole of NATO.
So, Ambassador, what do you want to say about this? Should NATO be responding? Now it's Denmark on top of Poland, Estonia, and Romania.
Well, first of all, NATO is responding and has been responding. This is why President Trump insisted on all of our allies spending 5% of their GDP on their defense, is because he could see that these types of activities would continue. And whether it was the Polish drone incursion several weeks ago, where F-35 fighter jets were scrambled and shot down many of those drones, whether it was the Estonian air incursion by fighter jets from Russia that were escorted out of Estonian airspace by, again, NATO allied countries, or whether it's the most recent Denmark sightings. I mean, all of those demonstrate where NATO actually has responded at the time, but it also points to those much needed investments in things like air defense, air domain awareness, and all of the sort of equipment and unique capabilities that the United States of America can sell and that our NATO allies desperately need. So we're going to continue to get stronger. This alliance is going to get stronger, and European allies are stepping up. To your point, they are bringing assets to Denmark. They brought assets to Poland. They brought assets to Estonia. But again, we have to make sure that each one of these incursions to our airspace is not only defended, but also make sure that we are not, sort of crying wolf, that we are actually, what we're seeing and what we're concluding is the reality of what's happening on the ground. And so we'll continue to work with our allies and make sure that they're strong in these regards.
You know, what I like about what President Trump has done here is, he's been talking about getting these countries up to 5% of their GDP for years, not just this term, but his first term as well. But what I like about the difference here is now he's saying, look, buy these weapons from America. We will send you these weapons through NATO, and the NATO countries will purchase them. Again, he's ensuring that America is getting something here, not just sending money to Ukraine and sending weapons to Ukraine. He wants European nations to buy weapons.
You lost TikTok?
The president of Poland, Nowrowski told me that he
I never
wants
had a
more
TikTok.
weapons. We're hearing this increasingly
I don't even know
from NATO
how to
countries.
even
They're
use
right
that.
now in the middle of buying more weapons. The same.
I don't even know what it is.
With the
I know what it's
Italian foreign
about, but
minister,
I never
who told me the
been in
same
that.
thing last week.
I call it
Mr.
TikTok.
Tajani.
TikTok.
Yeah, it's crucial. And, we not only do we make the best systems in the world, whether it's the Patriot, air defense system, or even the Abrams tanks, and, from highly exquisite systems to very basic 155 shells that are manufactured in my home state of Iowa. Across the board, the U.S. makes the best equipment, and it's the most available right now. We're the only one that can produce at scale that's needed on the battlefield in Ukraine and for our stockpiles. That's, I think, the most important thing that I'm trying to impress upon U.S. industry, but also the entire defense industry in the alliance, is that we have to increase production. We have not only the needs on the battlefield in Ukraine, but our additional future needs, where we need to make sure our stockpiles are deep. And, Joe Biden and his administration let those stockpiles, I think, run too low. And President Trump is committed to making sure we have everything we need, and also we have enough that we can supply to our allies to make sure they have the best available munitions and equipment that they can buy.
Yeah, I mean, look, he got that agreement from NATO allies in June to commit 5% of their GDP to defense spending by year 2035, Ambassador. What else should we be looking at in terms of these buys? Is it drones? Is it F-35s? What should we be understanding better about how they're getting their defense spending up to 5%? And by the way, I think Poland has been there at 5% for a long time.
Yeah, Poland. I was just there in Poland a couple of weeks ago, and they are close to 5%. I mean, they are a model ally. They're exactly investing in the kinds of things that we would expect. I mean, the F-35 is obviously the premier system. It is a battle platform that can, fight from ground to, 50,000 feet in the air. I mean, it is a great system. But, it's also the non-sophisticated systems like artillery, tanks, and that are going to to be
I don't think
required
they can
for the
purchase
modern
eggs.
battlefield. But you're right, drones.
I mean, TikTok
we're
is a
talking
different
about
thing.
today. Your first question.
I mean, they can put in
based
and
on
have a
primarily
part of
drones,
it.
drone incursion, drones being used on the battlefield in
But,
Ukraine, drones attacking cities
Elon
in Ukraine.
owns
So,
X.
so we need to make sure our counter
He ain't letting
UAV
that go.
systems that can
Hell
hit
no.
these
He
drones
knows.
in midair.
That's
Ukraine
a
has figured out a
gold
lot of
mine.
how to do that, and I
X,
think we need to take that
yeah.
learning off the
X is going to be
battlefield in
passed
Ukraine and
down to
deploy
his
it
son.
to our NATO alliance.
That's
And I
why
think
his
that's
son's
one of
named
the
X.
two-way streets that we have with the U.S. weapons being
Well,
sold to our NATO allies,
his name is
being
weird.
provided
I
to
forgot his
Ukraine.
name.
We're then getting that learning off the battlefield at a military to military trade, trade off. And I think that really helps our future ability to fight wars because it's a different battlefield. Generals say we're not going to fight that way, but if we have to, we need to be
Yeah,
able to.
I never
All right.
joined TikTok.
Meanwhile, the
I
United
see people
Nations
stay off
is
of that
promising
shit.
a thorough investigation after President Trump said that there was
Yeah,
triple
and I have
sabotage at
beautiful
last week's
cats, and
General
I could put them
Assembly.
on there. They can
Of
make a
course,
lot of
he's
money.
referring to the escalator, which stopped as soon as he and the First Lady stepped
Triple
on.
sabotage.
She was incredibly unfazed. She just kept walking up the steps, no problem for her. But it wasn't the only thing. The teleprompter stopped working. He had audio issues during his speech. Was this sabotage? We don't know. A spokesperson for the UN said that the UN is ready to cooperate in full transparency with relevant U.S. authorities on this matter to determine what caused the incidents referred to by the United States. A day earlier, that same spokesperson sent this note to reporters, quote, in an effort to document their arrival, a videographer from the U.S. delegation stepped on the escalator. The escalator had stopped after a built-in safety mechanism on the comb step was triggered at the top of the escalator. The videographer may have inadvertently triggered the safety function described above. So they're blaming a U.S. videographer. The UN also said that the White House took over control of the teleprompter moments before he began, Ambassador. What went on at the UN last week?
Well, obviously, President Trump was able to perform even with all these malfunctions. That doesn't seem, if it was just one, that might make some sense. But when you have three things like this, I mean, we do need full transparency. The General Secretary for the UN has suggested that we will have a full investigation and transparency. I mean, the bottom line is that President Trump delivered a strong message to the UN, a message of both U.S. leadership and the fact that there is our two paths you can go down. You can either be with the United States and our allies in the free world, or you can go with China, Iran, Russia, and all of the rogue nations that are trying to undo human freedom and prosperity. So I think the choice is obvious, and President Trump is leading the way.
Yeah, I mean, that was some speech he gave at the UN. We're all still talking about it. Matthew Whitaker, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you, Maria. Thank you.
All right, NATO Ambassador Matt Whitaker. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Trump has a lot in his hands right now. Let's continue on.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh man, if I ever had a video that really exemplifies how these left-wingers live in an information bubble. Very often we refer to the blue anon crowd as being low information voters, but I think it's less so low information, although that certainly does apply in many cases, and more so misinformation. They live in alternate freaking realities, man. They live in these little social media bubbles where all they get fed is constant confirmation bias, and you have all these little internet grifters like Harry Sisson and others who purposely spread copium nonstop and misinformation, and these people just seem to live in there, buying it all hook, line, and sinker. And that's where we get moments like these where the truth bomb hits, and it's really not even necessarily a truth bomb. It's just kind of a basic understood fact. But to them, it's the shock of the world. It's the most shocking, unbelievable thing they've ever heard. The moment they hear something that contradicts the narrative that's been spoon-fed to them by MSNBC, well, it's just a worldview shattering moment. It's like seeing somebody who's been living in a cult for 30 years, finally stepping foot out of that bubble and realizing there's a whole world beyond, and they kind of reject it or don't know how to interpret it or absorb it. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this moment at The View. We got Alyssa Farah Griffin here, who I think I might add is no Trump supporter, so I think that's important. Well, here she is basically making the argument that if there was an election held today, Donald Trump would likely win.
I'm going to say something that's going to make this table and this audience very upset, but I want to tell the unvarnished truth. I think if the election were reheld today, Donald Trump would win by the same, if not a bigger margin. I think we forget this.
How do you say that, though?
This country is so deeply polarized. If you hated him before, you hate him even more now. There are definitely people who are like, ooh, I'm having some buyer's remorse. But there's this poll today that shows that on the top issues people voted on, they still trust Republicans more. We are literally a 48-48 country, and then this little percentage in the middle that goes either way.
I would be curious who this poll, the age of the poll, because I think this probably gears younger in who is saying that, because anyone who has read their history books since the beginning of time, democracy may be fragile. It is the only way. You do not want a theocracy. You do not want a monarchy. You do not want socialism or communism. They have never worked in intention and spirit. They sound great, but go back to the books because that will not end well.
And their reaction is so telling. They acted as if she'd slapped them in the damn face. They couldn't believe it. And that's because they're living in a bubble. They live in an alternate reality where this kind of thing is all they see.
Donald Trump is less popular than he has ever been. He is underwater on virtually every issue. If you oppose and are disgusted by what this administration is doing, you are in the company of a majority of Americans. You are not alone. More people disapprove and are
there's
opposed
people that
to
pay
this
money
administration right now
to her.
than they are in support.
There's
of
people
this
that donate
administration.
to her.
Those are the numbers.
Crazy. Donald Trump is at the lowest numbers ever, and he's underwater on nearly every issue. Where are you seeing this? It's crazy. Again, the party of science, right? The party of data and stats. In comes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez representing that party, and she's just pulling out random statements out of her freaking behind. And you'll notice that in the world of Democrat politics, they never actually cite polls and numbers. It's never about the facts. No, they just speak in these empty platitudes. They speak in almost wishful thinking terms. Breaking news today, Donald Trump's once again in free fall, and we're winning across the board on literally everything. Source? Trust me, bro. But of course, the reality is quite different. First of all, let's tackle the issue of Donald Trump being down on all the issues. That couldn't be further from the truth, especially after the Charlie Kirk shooting.
At this particular point, the Democrats are the New Orleans Saints of political parties. What are we talking about? Trust the Dems or GOP more on the economy? Who leads on the economy? Republicans by 7. Immigration, Republicans by 13. How about crime? A big issue for Donald Trump and the Republicans. Look at that. Lead by 22 points. So the bottom line is this. At this particular point, the ball may be on the ground, but the Democrats have not picked up the ball and running with it. If anything, at this particular point, it's the Republicans who are running with the ball on the top issues, the economy, immigration, and crime.
Democrats are tanking. They're behind on nearly every issue, and it's not even close. And even the issues that you'd expect them to dominate on, like healthcare, they're not even particularly ahead. Not to mention voter registration trends. And then speaking of Donald Trump supposedly collapsing, again, where are you seeing this? I mean, if you're cherry picking the data and looking at the RCP average here and just specifically isolating the Quinnipiac poll showing Trump 38% approval, well, then sure, you could come to that conclusion. But obviously, that's not the way the real world works. That's not how polling works. That's like making a prediction during the last election that Donald Trump's going to lose Iowa because of that one Ann Seltzer poll. Every other poll had Trump winning by 10 plus points, and then one poll shows the polar opposite, and every Democrat then states that as the gospel truth. It's idiotic. It's completely idiotic. And the reality is, again, Trump's numbers are far superior to all of his presidential predecessors in their second term. His average is at 45, sure, but it's being brought down by shitty pollsters like Quinnipiac. But if you look at the best pollsters, he's rising. The latest 2 polls from RMG Research and Rasmussen have them both at around 50-50. Then we've got Atlas Intel, one of the best pollsters in the game, showing President Trump having a tremendous lead this week. His number recovering up to 47% in that poll. You may think it's underwater because it's negative. 40% approval rating in this hyper-divisive day and age for this president, it's pretty damn good, especially considering the psychological operation that's been going on. I mean, they've been attacking him like crazy. It's been nonstop psyop after psyop for 9 months straight. And yet, despite the lawfare, despite the indictments, despite the media hit jobs, despite the fear-mongering optics over Doge and the ICE crackdowns, I mean, 9 months of heavy Democrat propaganda, him still being at 47% is a near miracle. And again, much higher than Obama, who supposedly is the patron saint of politics, right? The greatest man to ever do it. I mean, they put him on a pedestal like no one else, a totally undeserved pedestal, just like his Nobel Peace Prize. But again, I'm just not seeing it. And it's so funny to read the comments under the 47% number coming out from Atlas Intel. You'll see all these Democrats celebrating, oh, now this means the complete and utter collapse of Donald Trump and the GOP in the 2026 midterms. Now, it is possible that the GOP underperforms, considering Trump's name won't be on the ballot, but I just don't get how you come to that conclusion, especially as the voter registration continues to shift rightward. And on top of that, you got the redistricting fail that Gavin Newsom tried to lead. We got all kinds of GOP voters being added to the voter rolls, and Democrats underwater across the board in literally every metric. It's copium, it's delusion. I don't know how else to describe it, but at its core, what it really is, at least the narrative premise that's being crafted by the elitist media Dems, it's a psychological operation. They want you to buy the narrative, or they want to speak that narrative into existence in an effort to intimidate the president, to get him to stop, to slow down. Well, obviously, I don't think it's working. It seems to me the people are still very much behind this president. And so my message would be to the Trump administration, although I don't think they need it. I think they're aligned in thinking, let's say. My message would be, do not stop fighting. Do not back down. The data is on our side. The people are on our side. And so don't slow down for a second. Despite the psyops, despite the vicious attacks, despite the fake news and the slander, the numbers are still solid. And so I guess the message is don't fall for the BS. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching.
This
and I'll
channel's
see you on the
awesome.
next one.
I like his channel. That's the Liberal Hive Mind. Good channel. I like how he puts the videos together. It's really cool. Got some more news here. I got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, possibly 10 more videos to watch. So hang tight. We're gonna go through this pretty quick. So let me set this up and let's continue watching the news. Input.
Walmart is America's largest private employer with nearly 2.5 million workers, and its CEO, Doug McMillon, just gave an AI wake-up call. He says it's very clear that AI is going to change literally every job. Maybe there's a job in the world that AI won't change, but I haven't thought of it. More automation in warehouses, more AI chatbots providing customer service. Some jobs might disappear. Others may emerge. One thing is certain. C-suites across the country are anticipating a monumental shift. Okay, you revealed yourself as Mr. Ingenuity,
Yes,
innovation.
sir.
You don't short anything.
Right.
AI.
Yeah.
He didn't say it's going to kill every job. He said it's going to change every job.
And that's the important
means
distinction.
Some go away, some add. What do you make of that?
Change is very different from destroy or eradicate. So I agree with him that AI not only will change, but is changing. And we could come up with all kinds of examples, whether anecdotally or professionally. I'll give you one that I thought was fascinating. The Wall Street Journal asked lawyers to review contracts. And on average, it takes a good lawyer about an hour and a half to go through a contract. Well, they put 15 contracts through AI, and in 45 seconds, they had the same response back from the computer. Now, that doesn't mean that you lose all the lawyers. You still need a lawyer to go through and then finish it. Yeah, that's right. You're a lawyer. So it's not as though all those jobs certainly don't exist, but you may not meet as many as you thought. So I think he's right. There are going to be changes, and I think the onus is on all of us to figure out how to use AI efficiently, effectively, make our own businesses better. And then if I don't have kids, but if I did and they were in high school, I might encourage them to start thinking a little outside the box. Where there is AI, there are data centers. And where there are data centers, you need electricians, master electricians that can actually physically wire the stuff, or HVAC specialists, right? Because you got to cool this stuff down. There are new jobs that will be created. Robot took my job, right? You go in the factory. Well, guess what? There are people who need to maintain robots, even build. So I just think we all have to be thoughtful about how to adapt. In the same way, the car put the horse business out of business, right?
Well, so you talk about
make it worse.
Talk about adaptation, and Jackie, I know you can review 15 contracts a second, so you're okay. But Accenture CEO Julie Sweet, she said, "Look, we are exiting employees who can't be retrained for this."
Yeah.
So I appreciate thoughtful adaptation, but this seems like speedy, get smart real quick on how to use this stuff. And that
Yes.
could be tricky.
And it leaves opportunity for the up and comers, for people who are just deciding what they want to do now, if they're at that age, if they're either in school or are thinking about trade schools or different things, that programs that they could do without going to a four-year college. They have a lot of opportunity. I actually asked AI about the kind of jobs AI will create. And AI said there'll be more training jobs in training people how to use AI that's managing the robots.
Yeah.
This was interesting, the ethics category of it, people to manage that, because once this goes on a grander scale, you can imagine some of the problems that are going to rise, and then the actual implementation of it. To me, Adam, though, what you're talking about is change for the better, but the rate of change is going to matter, how quickly those jobs are eliminated and then replaced. And then at the end of it all, when you sort of look at it in a lump sum, when most of it is fleshed out, apples to apples, was it equal, or are there less jobs created than were eliminated? You know, I covered energy, and we're going to talk about it in the next block, about coal. You had a lot of people in the energy industry who were displaced because this is what they were trained to do. They were trained to do it a certain way. And as we scaled back on certain technologies, they just couldn't adapt and keep up with it anymore. And so you're going to have a piece of that. That's going to be complete elimination of not being able to retrain employees that were in the workforce.
You put a finger on, I think, the key point is at the end of this, when it's all sorted out, how many jobs are lost and created? Are we net higher in number of jobs? If we look historically at technological innovations, from the internet to the steam engine to anyone you pick, there is a near-term diminishment in jobs, but then a long-term creation in that. So I don't think this is going to be any different from any other technological innovation trend. It's following the pattern. A lot of times it's Joseph Schumpeter's creative destruction, right? It's classic. Everyone freaks out and panics. There is some loss, but this is really a job remix. It's not job losses. I see it as people having to learn how to do different skills, and it's going to be quick and it's going to be fast. And that's what's going to characterize this change versus other ones. You're not going to have a choice but to adapt. Otherwise, it's a survival thing. And this is what I think is great about the American economy. It's dynamic. It can adjust quickly. People can learn new skills fast, and AI is going to enable that.
Let me throw another ingredient in the soup here. There's about 4.5 million industrial robots in the world. About 2 million of those are in China. So you got AI, and then you got the robots kind of working off the AI, doing some of these manual labor jobs. So you can't forget about that when it comes to what changes, what gets destroyed, job picture, Dagan.
It's not the robots. This is happening so rapidly in ways that people can't see it. If you talk to individuals, particularly who work in tech, they are adapting and coming up with ways to streamline just their workflow that is just mind-boggling. And if you work at a company that isn't beginning or actively using, say, MCP servers using agents or their large language models, and I will explain, then your company's already behind. And I'm talking about where we work right now. You know, what is, because I was talking to a tech executive last week and about the spend in servers, in the like the data centers. And the person said, yeah, that spending is probably out of whack by 2 orders of magnitude, 3 orders of magnitude. But what tech and engineering shops are doing with this technology more and more is explosive and just innovative. MCP servers, it stands for Model Context Protocol. And this is a way to get your agents or your large language model, like
that's a good one.
Use Claude as an example. Your Claude Code. Claude Code is an agent that you use to code. You can hook up your Claude Code to an MCP server that will it gives your Claude Code, your agent, full functionality to perform a variety of tasks. For example, it'll do crash analysis. You can hook it up to MCP Notion. You can hook it up to integrate it with GitHub. And these are essentially apps or adapters to your large language model or your agent.
Yeah.
And it just
This is nerd talk.
amplifies the productivity and the functionality of these agents, agentic AI. And it is transformative and it's happening rapidly. MCP, the Model Context Protocol, is a functionality developed by Anthropic, which is the developer of Claude. But again, if your company is not using this, you're already behind.
Yeah, this is the next leg of it, right? We trained the models, and now it's called inference. You're putting the models and letting it use new inputs, new data, and make decisions in real time based upon how it's been trained. It's the next leg of this. I think there's a huge opportunity here.
Well, you've all convinced me I need to hit the books. I got a lot to learn in this
keyboard.
world.
It's not books. It's just usage.
I know.
You know, it's just.
That's the joke. I'm still thinking
plugging
about
in.
books. About books.
Well, me too. My purse.
All right, you gotta keep it moving.
The White House also releasing a map detailing the different phases of IDF withdrawal within Gaza. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy was there, and he's now here to give us the major takeaways. Peter?
And, Will, there are 20 principles of peace, they call them, that the U.S., President Trump, and the Israelis, Prime Minister Netanyahu, agreed to. We don't know yet how many of those points Hamas negotiators will agree to because the U.S. doesn't talk directly to Hamas. They rely on calls to Qatar to pass messages back and forth.
Arab and Muslim partners are fully prepared to step up and fulfill their commitments for the benefit of the people of Gaza and the entire region. They're willing to step up and do a lot. They really are. There are a lot of good people involved.
With this, President Trump is formalizing his plan from a few months ago to redevelop Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. One of the points here is the Trump economic development plan to rebuild and re-energize Gaza. Lots of possibilities. But first, today, Netanyahu had to do something. He had to call Qatar and say sorry for strikes inside Qatar that unintentionally killed a Qatari serviceman. Now that that's out of the way, the burden is going to shift to the Palestinians.
I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny because that's what we're giving them. We're giving them responsibility for their destiny, fully condemn and prohibit terrorism and earn their way to a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas.
If this peace deal is ratified, President Trump will become the chairman of a newly formed board of peace. But if it is not ratified, President Trump is pledging that Israel will have full U.S. backing to continue the fight in Gaza. Will?
Peter, it's bold, it's strong, it seems to have the support of many important Arab nations, but the real question is the one that you introduced. It must have a dance partner on the other side of the card. Where is the sense of optimism coming from that this is something that will be accepted by Hamas?
The sense of optimism is coming, and again, this is like the 1% of press conference or of events that you see President Trump in front of a microphone that we did not have a chance to ask him questions like this. But things are so sensitive and so fragile. They want to wait on the details like that. But the optimism, if your team can put back up the map that we had, the Israelis are going to give up. They are agreeing to give up a little bit of the land that they currently occupy. And you can see it there. They're going to pull back from territory that they currently control. And that is why that kind of a concession is the reason that folks around here think that they could actually be getting really, really close to an agreement. But again, it's 20 points. That kind of detail helps with something like this, but that's 20 things for Hamas negotiators who have proven to be as stubborn as any in a global conflict over the last several centuries, or at least several decades. It gives them 20 things to go through and pick apart and say, no, we want these 20 changes made.
Well, that's a perfect transition, Peter. We'd love for you to hang out while we bring in Fox News chief correspondent Trey Yingst, who's live from Tel Aviv, into our discussion. Trey, you just heard Peter's report. Tell me what you think the sense is, not just with Hamas. Would any of these be acceptable conditions to Hamas, but what the attitude is inside of Israel?
Yeah, Will, I want to start with some breaking news here. An official briefed on the current talks, speaking exclusively with Fox News, says that Qatar's prime minister and Egypt's intelligence chief just met with Hamas negotiators and shared with them that 20-point Trump plan. The Hamas negotiators telling Qatar's prime minister and Egypt's intelligence chief they will review it in good faith and provide a response. Again, that is the first official piece of information that we have about Hamas actually viewing this document that was presented today by President Trump at the White House alongside Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Anticipation is growing across the Middle East, Will, as it relates to this proposal. President Trump offered an olive branch to the Palestinian people, allowing them to stay in Gaza, giving them billions of dollars worth of funds from the international community to rebuild, and ushering in a new technocratic government for the Palestinian people. All of this, though, hinges on Hamas and whether or not they will lay down their arms and release the remaining 48 hostages, 20 of whom are believed to be alive. And that is part of the reason that there is such tension here in the Middle East, because it's unclear whether or not Hamas will agree to such a deal. Will?
Peter, quickly back to you. You just heard Trey's report, and as you mentioned, everything with Hamas goes through Qatar. You were there for that phone call today. President Trump described it as a heart-to-heart between Benjamin Netanyahu and Qatari officials. So if Qatar is playing middleman, is that someone that you got the sense from the White House that is playing an endorser of this 20-point plan, or would they be undercutting this 20-point plan to Hamas?
They would be more neutral, but on the side of endorsing because it is in their interest for this war to end. A lot of these and President Trump was talking about this a little bit. These Arab and Muslim nations don't want this war to be continuing right now, but they also haven't wanted to intervene. And so it seems like Qatar is going to be the key player here. We got a sense of that when we traveled to the Middle East to Qatar with President Trump a few months ago. He wants to deepen ties with the Qataris. And so they are going to be important. They might be the most important people here other than President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. But again, as Trey was just talking about, the wild card is Hamas and their negotiators. And President Trump, while they are so optimistic, he started this press conference today by saying that this could be one of the great days in the history of civilization. But there is a catch. It might not work out. And that all depends on these Hamas guys.
All right, Peter, excellent report. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and being a part of this conversation. We're going to keep Trey for one more minute, and I want to ask you about that moment in history, Trey. It would be an incredible moment in history that sets not only this Trump administration apart from all the others who've tried to achieve peace in the Middle East, but it would be historical on its own in the Middle East, regardless of who's the president. And it makes you wonder, Trey, how likely we pull off this 20-point plan.
Well, absolutely. And look, the president has been able to get the Qataris back as a mediator in all of this, and they are quite frankly needed to get such a deal done. He actually had Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from the Oval Office call the Prime Minister of Qatar and apologize for striking his country earlier this month, where one Qatari security official was killed along with 5 Hamas officials. Right. But when we zoom out here, what the president is presenting here is the possibility of peace in the Middle East. And this could be an initial step towards stabilizing the region, trying to rebuild the situation inside Gaza after a horrific 2-year war that saw a massive amount of suffering for the civilian population in both Israel and in Gaza, and then usher in a new chapter for the region that would allow President Trump to expand the Abraham Accords and bring in countries even as far as Iran. The president bringing that up from the White House, saying it's a possibility. Right. And so the president's vision here is very broad, and this is the first step in all of it.
Well, you have to love, if nothing else, the optimism and the ambition. Trey Yingst, thanks so much for joining us from Tel Aviv.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
right,
click
let's keep
here.
it moving. We got a lot to go. Let's go to Ben John's show.
What's up, guys? Benny, remember that one time that our country lost its collective damn mind because a lifelong career criminal and fentanyl abuser had a cardiac arrest after committing crimes? And then the nation decided it would just be okay to allow our capital, Washington, D.C., to be taken over by terrorists and burned to the ground, which is precisely what happened. Here is the live shot broadcast on MSNBC of black smoke pouring through Washington, D.C. as the peaceful protesters decided to set the White House on fire. This is part of the White House grounds. This is a property on the grounds of the White House that was lit and set ablaze. You can see right here that the rioters are literally burning down the White House. This is what they intended to do. They wanted to attack violently President Trump and his administration. This is a true violent insurrection. We know this because we watched them literally try and attack and kill Rand Paul. I was actually like a couple feet away when this was happening. We were both leaving Donald Trump's speech at the RNC convention, and Senator Rand Paul barely escaped with his life. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the White House grounds. This is the peaceful protesters who tried to tear down the statue of Andrew Jackson outside of the White House because racism. They even burned churches outside of the White House. You can see here, this is St. John's Church. I mean, you've seen all this before, but you can see in this famous footage, St. John Church has been set ablaze. It's the most famous church in America. How it didn't get burned down entirely to kindling, this I do not know, but this was the insanity that we were dealing with at the time. Why are we going through all of this? You obviously know that this is something that happened in America, and the reason why I'm rehashing it is because I want to give context to who the FBI was kneeling to. Very important here. Because when BLM was doing this, when the Antifa rioters and the BLM terrorists were marching through Washington, D.C., torching our city to the ground, trying to assassinate our president, literally setting our most historic churches, monuments, and buildings on fire, including the White House, there were agents at the FBI that decided that their fealty would be to the terrorists. And they made that known by walking outside and pledging fealty to the terrorists. This, of course, the famous photo of the very doughy FBI agents, all of them white women, of course, who decided to get down on their knees and say, these terrorist movements, they're our new masters. This is, of course, a total and complete humiliation for the FBI, and something that I said upon Kash Patel getting his nomination as director. I'll say it first. This is what we're all thinking. Her first. Fire her first. Set the tone. This did 7,000 reposts, 81,000 likes, and 6 million views. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it took a few months. I sent this on November 30th. But hot damn, here we are. FBI fires agents photographed kneeling during 2020 racial justice protest. Is that what they say? Is that what this is? Is that what this all was? This was a racial justice protest when the city of Washington, D.C. was set on fire and they were trying to murder the president. Got it. Got it. See how it works there? See how the revisionist history works there? Anyway, these are, of course, the rotund and humiliating and woke agents, FBI agents, who made sure to put on their little FBI tactical jackets, just in case you're wondering who they were, and kneel. This guy can't even kneel under his own power. He doesn't even have enough muscle tone to kneel by himself. He has to slump over on a barrier here, but they're all fired. Thank God. Here we go. The FBI agents have fired. The FBI has fired agents photographed during the racial justice protests in Washington, D.C., following the death of a fentanyl abuser from cardiac arrest. 3 people familiar with the matter said Friday. The Bureau last spring has reassigned the agents but has since now fired them, said the people who insist on anonymity to discuss the matter. The number of FBI agents terminated was not immediately clear, but people said it was roughly 20. The photograph at issue showed a group of agents taking a knee during one of the demonstrations following the May 2020 George Floyd overdose death that led to a national reckoning over police and racial justice. It's the other way they write this stuff. I'm actually like writing it correctly for them. They're saying the May 2020 killing of George Floyd. That's not true. That's not what the autopsy says. I mean, like, this is the AP, you know, you'd assume they know this kind of stuff. Anyway, here we go. Let's continue on. We'll be here all day. I have to correct the copy here. Thank you, FBI Director Kash Patel. Please fire the person who hired her and allowed her to be an FBI agent. That's exactly right. Goodness gracious. FBI Director has fired all of the remaining George Floyd riot agents who are pictured kneeling here to a terrorist organization. Look at that. Oh, I love this guy. I love this guy clapping. I love how they all like carry their guns and badges and their little FBI jackets and vests. FBI fires agents who were caught kneeling during George Floyd protests. Yeah. See the difference between this article and this article? I need to tell my team, stop sending me these AP articles. I hate reading fake news to my team. They weren't kneeling during a racial justice protest. They were kneeling, pledging fealty to terrorists who are currently burning DC to the ground and attacking the life of the president. That's what they said on camera and in action. The Bureau last spring reassigned the agents, but has since fired them. Well done. The photograph showed a group of agents kneeling. There they are. And Kash Patel has done, again, a wonderful thing. 2020 George Floyd protesters. FBI has fired the agents who were photographed. Good riddance. These FBI agents who kneeled during BLM riots have been fired. Outsters finalized 24 FBI agents. The FBI Association calls the firings unlawful and a dangerous precedent. No, it's not. The dangerous precedent is pledging fealty to a terrorist organization inside of the place that's supposed to fight terrorism. I'm so delighted that these kneeling FBI agents got fired. Anyone celebrating criminals doesn't deserve to work for the taxpayers. That's exactly right. This is fun.
You're watching some news.
White women.
We're almost wrapping it up. I got like
special agents were allowed to be political. Undermines the agency.
Like 6 more, maybe 7 more to watch. For.
Hope these feds can code.
I got like 3 Tyson de la Cruz videos to watch.
Applauding and clapping. And this is the same week that the FBI.
And I think he's releasing one already.
Confirmed that there were 300 FBI agents or undercovers in January 6th. They fired a lot of the agents involved in January 6th. Beautiful thing. Charlie Kirk here at the time saying the FBI has fired 3 officials, including a former acting director who served in that role prior to the confirmation of Kash Patel. Forced out special agent who was involved in the investigation of Trump, Peter Navarro, Steve Jensen, who was in charge of the Washington field office. Cleaning house. Very good. Charlie Kirk approves.
Definitely for Tyson.
The new acting director, Brian Driscoll, was the command section chief who raided Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, good. Brian Driscoll, former acting FBI director who refused to carry out Trump administration plans, has been forced out. The dude who raided Mar-a-Lago, really? Kash Patel promised that he would expose FBI agents involved in January 6th, and he has made good on that promise. FBI considering mass purge of agents involved in the Trump investigation. They've done a great job of it. They have gone through and followed through. And you know what? We just like being right. So please follow us, because we are often right. That's what we're all thinking. I just tweeted, aged, sent 1 year ago, aged like fine wine. Like, share, and subscribe.
There you go, Benny Johnson. Thank you very much. Let's keep it going.
This is wild story, okay? Residents and teachers in Des Moines, Iowa, they were in shock after the superintendent of their schools was arrested by ICE last week. Dr. Ian Roberts is accused of being in the United States illegally and allegedly fled from agents before being caught. Jeff Paul is live from Des Moines with details. Jeff, what is going on?
Yeah, strange story, Dana. And the head of Iowa's largest school district is now being placed on paid administrative leave. He's currently being held at a nearby county jail, all while parents and teachers right here in Des Moines try to figure out what exactly happened and what's next. Now, ICE tells Fox News it was on Friday when they arrested and detained Dr.
YouTube is doing me dirty.
For Des Moines Public Schools.
You may have to like
he's an illegal immigrant from Guyana.
Make sure the bell is on all.
In May of 2024. When federal agents tried to take Roberts into custody on a fugitive warrant last week, they claim he initially sped away. After finding his abandoned district,
I come on every day at 7:30
authorities later found Roberts in a wooded area.
And then I do wake and
says
bakes
they found a
in the
handgun,
morning,
a knife, and
sometimes.
$3,000 in cash inside his vehicle. School board chair Jackie Norris
That's
says
great.
they weren't aware of any final removal warnings for Roberts and says they still do not have all the facts.
I want to be clear, no one here was aware of any citizenship or immigration issues that Dr. Roberts may have been facing. The accusations ICE has made against Dr. Roberts are very serious, and we are taking them very seriously.
Now, DHS says Roberts last entered the U.S. through New York back in 1999 on a student visa. Officials say that he was not legally authorized to work in the U.S. after his employment authorization card expired in 2020. ICE says there was a prior weapons charge, but the school district says they were aware of a charge relating to a hunting rifle, which he disclosed during the hiring process. The school district also adding that they did all their background checks and nothing was flagged. They also said that Dr. Roberts signed some paperwork confirming that he was, in fact, a U.S. citizen. Dana?
Jeff Paul, thank you.
So, bizarre story.
Iowa.
Jennifer Cronin, Des Moines mom, whose son was a middle school student in the public schools there. And Jennifer, thank you for your time. He's 54, hired from Erie, Pennsylvania. After he entered the U.S. in 1999, he went back to Guyana and participated in the Olympics in the track and field. Bizarre stuff here. You've had some situations with the school board at a minimum. What do you think of this?
Right. I guess shocked, but not shocked. I've had a few dealings with the school board in probably the last 6 months or so where concerns have been dismissed. And to say that those were probably some red flags that they should have addressed then, I think at the minimum, they should have taken my concerns seriously.
Wow. Okay. So here's the school board chair in Des Moines. All right. She's calling for what's called radical empathy in his case.
Right. Yeah.
It seems fitting to take a page out of Dr. Roberts' book and ask the community to engage in radical empathy as we work through this situation together.
Radical empathy.
Radical empathy is the recognition that we can disagree and still empathize with each other. The respect of others' humanity. This concept will be essential as we wait to learn more.
He was given an order to deport in 2024, May of that year. What do you think of this call just to wave the white flag and call this off?
When she said radical empathy to open her press conference on Friday, where she didn't take any questions.
The school board chair is former Michelle
right now,
Obama
what we need
staffer.
is radical honesty, radical transparency, and radical accountability. These are our kids we're talking about. This isn't, any job. This is the superintendent, which oversees our entire school district. Their words ring hollow to me. I think that they need to make sure that they're looking out for the best interest and the safety of our kids. And I don't see that happening. And that's something that I've brought to their attention previously.
Okay,
So,
well, let me just squeeze in one more thing. Jonathan Turley, we rely on for a lot of legal interpretation. He wrote this. The question is how the federal government will respond to these multiple school districts hiring Roberts. It is unlawful to hire someone with an illegal status under immigration laws. I mentioned Erie, Pennsylvania, and now Des Moines, Iowa. Some are saying that by most accounts, he was a good guy and cared for the kids. What would you say to them?
Good
I
guy.
will say that he was very charismatic. I will give you that. There were a lot of people who felt that way. And I did at the beginning as well. That my mom radar quickly went up in, I guess, the fall of 2023. So a few months after he started, when he recommended and the district approved this idea of lifting the prohibition on not hiring people with criminal backgrounds. So we had that going for us. And then just throughout the course of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of things that have caused me pause, caused red flags to go up in my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wasn't privy to any of the documentation or any
Hope Trump finds out about it.
He may have provided during his interviewing and hiring process. But if anything, I'm finding just as a mom detective online in the last couple of days, it indicates there were a lot of red flags that were missed. So when the school district's board chair goes on TV and says, no, there were no red flags, I find that hard to believe.
Okay, so we'll see what happens next. A bizarre story. Don't know if I've heard of one like this.
No, weird times we're living in for sure.
Watch it out of the
Well, thank you.
Hey, everyone.
Weird times. All right, hold on. Close that. And let's go over to this one.
Off the top at 6 tonight, we continue working breaking news. A convicted murderer mistakenly released from jail.
And now a criminal manhunt is underway. Let's get right to local 10's Christina
Oh,
Vasquez.
hell no.
With the late breaking details you need to know. Christina?
Oh, I know this jail. That's across the street where my dad used to work.
Killer. This is someone who was
My
supposed
dad
to
worked
be
for the
serving
county.
at this hour a life sentence in federal prison in connection to a brutal double murder. Is now a fugitive, and there are convicted murderer James Edward Daniels is on the lam. Federal and local law enforcement are asking for your help to locate the armed and dangerous felon who had already been sentenced to life in a federal prison for a brutal double murder that happened in Opa-locka 5 years ago, but now is a fugitive because of a, quote, procedural error. That is according to Miami-Dade Corrections. Documents show he was booked into the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center Wednesday of last week and then released just before 5:30 p.m. Saturday, despite the U.S. Attorney's Office saying he was sentenced to life in prison last March following his 2024 conviction. Daniels, one of three men federal investigators said in 2020, bound and tortured 3 victims they kidnapped from a truck yard in Opa-locka, stealing drugs and jewelry. 2 of the victims died, 1 survived. At this hour, the full context of the circumstances leading to his transfer from federal prison to a correctional facility in Miami-Dade and the, quote, procedural error that led to his mistaken release remains unclear. A full internal affairs investigation is underway. We did track down and reach out to his defense attorney. She declined to comment. Again, if you see him, give Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office a call. But again, be careful. He is to be considered armed and dangerous. Reporting live for you tonight, I'm Christina Vasquez, Local 10 News.
That's crazy, Christina. Are you kidding me? Let's go over to more news. Oh, actually, this is disgusting. But we got to watch it.
The grossest story you've ever worked on?
This one's at the top, yes. California is one of the most rat-infested states, but also now has the toughest rodenticide restrictions in the country. The new poison restrictions may even explain why the Whole Foods in Cupertino has been closed for months.
I am shocked. I mean, typically an infestation can be dealt with.
We find out that Whole Foods is closing because of a rat infestation. And we're like, what? Whole Foods?
This isn't some mom and pop shop outfit.
Yeah, and it's in Cupertino. So we're closed for a week, for 2 weeks. Then it was 2 months. And that's when we said, what's going on?
Let's take you beyond the headlines to the front lines with our team of journalists to explain how we find the stories and answers you're looking for. It's not enough to know what happened, but why? Because when you're searching for the truth, there's always a backstory.
Never seen this before.
Rats. Lots of them. That's what forced a local health department to shut down a high-end grocery store in Silicon Valley. Now, unfortunately for all of us, That is not terribly unusual, but here's what is bizarre.
After this, we're watching
How
like
long
4
it's taking
back to
that
back to
Whole
back
Foods
to back
and
Tyson
other
Little
big
Kings.
name chains to clean up their act after a rodent infestation. It turns out a little-known law aimed at protecting California wildlife also appears to be protecting rats. So this could be a worsening problem that even you could be forced to deal with inside your own home. I sat down with our investigative reporter, Hilda Gutierrez, to get the backstory to her rat story.
Is this the grossest story you've ever worked on?
Oh, well, I've done a couple of rat stories, and this one's at the top, yes.
So let's catch everyone up. So this has to do with a major grocery chain, a rat infestation that then forces them to close one of their California stores for months.
Yes.
And then you discover this somewhat little-known new state law that may be partially to blame for actually delaying how long it takes to get rid of the rats.
Yeah. It all started with the Whole Foods closure, really. So we find out that Whole Foods is closing because of a rat infestation. And we're like, what? Whole Foods? This is not an inexpensive store. We were also hearing about other stores in Southern California that were also stores that are known for selling high quality organic food and where prices are not cheap.
This isn't some mom and pop shop outfit.
Yeah, and it's in Cupertino. So we thought, what's going on? We looked into the health inspection reports, and that's when we find out what was really in there. When we spoke to the Department of Environmental Health, then they tell us it really came from a customer's complaint. Someone saw evidence of a rat infestation and reported it to the county, and that's when inspectors went in and shut the place down.
Wow. So this kind of infestation in and of itself isn't terribly uncommon, but what you figured out that may be leading to the delay in solving the problem, that's sort of the new thing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we found out Whole Foods, they're closed. They were closed for a week, for 2 weeks. Then it was 2 months. And that's when we said, what's going on?
Because normally stores or restaurants can turn this around and clean up their act in like a day or two.
We see it all the time. We see that the place is shut down. You look within 1 or 2 days at the county's website, and then you see they're opening up. Then we speak to the director of environmental health, and she tells us the same thing. This is uncommon.
Yeah.
We usually they want to open because they don't want to lose the money that's coming in from customers.
But
So
if war comes and
so we're asking more
Russia
questions
brings
now.
their
What's going on?
kamikaze
And it was
jets
the
and
Department of Environmental Health who
bombs
told us
California,
we actually
I
received
bet
a
you they'll
call
come
from the
running
pest
crying
control
to
that Whole
Trump
Foods
for
hired,
help. Please,
asking us
send
for
us all the
a
military.
waiver to use
Give me all the
stronger
military,
rodenticides,
National
this
Guard,
poison
Army,
that had recently been banned from
Marines,
California.
Air Force.
Because the
Send
backstory here is
everybody.
that there was this recent state law
I need
called
some.
the
I
Poison-Free
need more
Wildlife
hair
Act,
gel.
and it actually prohibits the use of some pretty common types of
Language that
rat
I
poison
always
that
do all
work
the
really well.
time.
Yeah, so California has been kind of a leader in this, and in the past few years they've passed other rodenticide bans, and this one was an enhancement of that as well. So this one extended the
Like I
list
even did the whole
of the
patty cake.
restricted poisons.
Like
What
Gavin
exactly
Newsom does.
prompted the ban? Because something tells me there isn't some powerful rat lobby fighting for the rights of rats.
So on
You
both
guys gotta go
ends,
back and
there's
watch
an
that.
agreement
That was funny. I did
that
a little patty
rats
cake.
are a
Just
risk to
the
public
Gavin
health.
Newsom.
So no
Yeah,
one
he
wants
uses his hands a
rats.
lot.
But when it comes to the ban itself and to the law, to the restriction, it went into effect because of the way they saw it was affecting wildlife. There was a study that came out showing that 90% of pumas that were tested
Yeah,
were
that's
tested
crazy.
positive for these toxins.
I wonder how
So
much
some of
land
them
Oprah's
were obviously dying,
buying.
and others were just getting sick.
So even though the pesticides are obviously designed and are targeting rats, other wildlife that eat the rats end up getting harmed too.
Yes, it's a secondary kind of poisoning, and that's what prompted this bill, AB 2552, that went into effect this year.
So as you and I both know from having done stories involving health departments, for a
that's
major
called
chain to be
deflecting.
forced to actually close its doors means that the infestation
He
has been
reminds me
pretty
of a
bad.
mirror.
Pretty bad.
That
So
he always look in the mirror,
health
so
department
everything
goes in
deflects
and
from him.
they find
He talks and it
rat
bounces off.
droppings in food prep areas,
You
in the
know,
deli, in
it's
the juice
really
bar.
talking about
They
himself.
closed down the deli, the juice bar, the bakery, and pest control comes in. They try to get everything under control, but instead it seemed like the rats expanded and moved to other parts of the store where customers were able to see more rat droppings.
And it wasn't just rats. I also saw from your reporting there were cockroaches in the bakery.
Cockroaches in the bakery. Imagine that. You're buying a cake for your family member and you're not thinking that there are these pests right next to the place where these cakes are getting made.
So unfortunately for the reporting, but maybe fortunately for people actually watching this, the inspection reports that you got didn't actually have pictures or photos. But tell me about
What did it get that bad?
Actually described of how bad this was.
Yeah, so they have what they're called major
I don't know why they don't take
violations, where
photos.
there is evidence that there are some type of rat or cockroach in the vicinity. There were also other minor violations, but those have to do with maybe not having paper towels in the bathroom or not having enough soap in the bathroom, things like that. But when it comes to the inspection report, prominently you see rat droppings throughout the store, and that was the biggest evidence. Then when pest control came in, they were able to trap what they call the roof rat. And now that we know way more than we're supposed to know about rats,
A rat expert, basically.
and more than we want to know, we know that roof rats, they're great climbers. So they're able to climb into tiny spaces and they're very difficult to get rid of.
So that's what they think started all this, roof rats at Whole Foods.
Roof rats that are obviously spreading, they're procreating, and now it's getting more difficult to get rid of them.
I guess they have good taste. So what really stood out to me is that this isn't just any place. I mean, this is at what is generally looked at a pretty high-end grocery store, a Whole Foods, and then of all places in the center of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, but when we speak to the pest control companies, they tell us obviously urban development and the way of the land, really how it's spread out, has a lot to do with where these rats want to be and where they want to live. Weather is another factor. So they don't discriminate. They have good taste, as you mentioned, and then you could find them at smaller or bigger grocery stores, and they don't care how much the price is for those products.
So what is Whole Foods saying about all this?
You know, they're not saying much about the details of the infestation. All they continue to say is that they're working to eliminate the problem. I went to them and asked, hey, the Department of Environmental Health is saying that you went to them or your pest control went to them asking for a waiver. Is this true? They wouldn't say anything. So they're just saying they're continuing to work and to try to manage this pest. And at the same time, from what we're able to observe from our drone video and just the video that we were able to gather, is that they're going through some type of major reconstruction of the building.
So if a major chain like Whole Foods is having a hard time coming up with a rat fix in light of this statewide ban, it seems like other businesses that don't have as deep pockets as, say, Whole Foods are going to encounter the same kind of problem.
Yes, and we did see other businesses, that also big businesses like Walgreens that was closed down for a couple of weeks, 99 Ranch Market that was also shut down for a week because of vermin infestations. But that also tells us a lot for just a common person, for your home, for residential places, that it's going to be maybe more difficult to get rid of these rodents. And what we hear from the pest control company is that now that this ban went in, they are getting questions from their customers. Hey, why can't we use the same poison we used last year that eliminated the problem immediately?
So do you see this as having a long-term impact in the Bay Area? I saw from your reporting, California actually has one of the highest concentration of rodents.
And, you know, we see so many stories, and obviously we hear about them here in the news, and we've seen restaurants and grocery stores that are closing. But according to the experts we spoke to, it's difficult to pinpoint one problem and say, hey, this is because there's a rodenticide ban. There's other factors like weather, like urban development, like the sanitation practices of a city that have a lot to do with rodent population.
So when this story hits your desk, what is your reaction, aside from losing your appetite?
You know, it was Whole Foods, right? Whole Foods, we don't hear this stuff coming from Whole Foods. And at the same time, as I mentioned, around the same time, we heard of another store, another grocery store in Southern California that sells juices for $18, smoothies for $18, that also had a rat problem. So we're saying definitely these rats don't discriminate. So that's kind of what caught my attention. And then the time that it was taking for them to get rid of the problem, that was like a second question. Why is it taking this long?
So connect the dots for us. If they can't use what has been this sort of proven method of certain kinds of rat poison, what other options are left?
So there are some poisons that are still allowed. They're obviously not as strong, and you need a bigger dose, more consumption of them for them to actually be effective. And they're relying heavily on exclusion. That means they're sealing holes and cracks. They're looking at where the rats are coming in from. That's one of the biggest ways that they're doing it.
So there are still potential solutions, but ones that might take a lot longer to actually see through.
And then there's also rat traps. They're heavily relying on rat traps. But what we hear from the pest control company in our story is that rats are very clever, and they find ways to go around the rat trap. They have surveillance video. This is what they tell me, of rats actually using an object to prop open the rat trap and get the bait, or they have video of rats that are pushing the rat traps off the edge and activating them, and then they'll capture the bait. So a lot more intelligent and clever than I knew.
Well, on that uplifting note, Hilda Gutierrez, investigative reporter for us. Hilda, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the next here. Let's go ahead and jump over here. Let's check out Jason A, another Jason A.
What we're seeing today is what I call turnkey totalitarianism. They are putting in place all of these technological mechanisms for control we've never seen before. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian state from the beginning of mankind to control every aspect of behavior, of conduct, of thought, and to obliterate dissent.
Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Capacity. Today,
look it up.
The mechanisms are being put in place that will make it so none of us can run
You're born
and none of us can hide.
Michigan police logo.
Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low orbit satellites.
Yeah, have a good night's sleep.
Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day. Digital currency that will allow them to punish us from a distance and cut off our food supply. Every right that you have is transformed into a privilege contingent upon your obedience to arbitrary government dictates. It will make you a slave. And what do we do about this? What do? We resist. I'm going to tell you 3 rules that you all need to know and memorize. Number 1, every power that government takes from us, it will never relinquish voluntarily. Number 2, every power they take from us, they will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. Number 3, nobody in history of the planet has ever complied their way out of totalitarian control. Every capitulation is a signal to the oppressors to impose new forms of torment or torture or compliance or obedience. Every time you comply, you get weaker. Bullies cannot be appeased. It just encourages them to new forms of torture and torment. Every time you say yes, you're getting pushed back to a weaker position. That's why we need to resist today.
A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens. It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned. Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to 0. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist, Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. He only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
Wow. That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
You, who was among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry, because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms.
So look, Paul Richards reckons, I've got my knickers in a twist, 2.3 million people signing a petition saying no to digital ID cards, this brick card app on your phone. We've all just really just being a bit silly, and there's nothing to worry about. It's going to be really convenient for us to have all our ID in one place. There's no risk to it. And miraculously, although no one's been able to explain why, it's going to deal with the issue of illegal migrants working. What do you make of those claims?
Absolutely ridiculous and absurd. There's no way that this digital ID card system is going to stop small boats arriving. There's no way it's going to prevent the Human Rights Act being used to deport criminals, terrorists.
No, but those people won't be able to get a job, we're told, and therefore they won't come here and work illegally because miraculously these employers who have not been checking their right to work will suddenly start check their right to work.
Yeah, we already have national insurance numbers which denote your right to work, and if you're an employer, you're not bothering to ask for one of those at the moment. Why should you suddenly start asking for a digital ID? It's completely absurd.
It's bewildering.
Pick up on one thing, an incredible arrogant thing that Paul Richards said there. He said, we've all got smartphones. Yeah. I just looked up the statistics for this. Between the ages of 25 and 55-year-olds, about 99% of people have smartphones. Over 65s, it drops to 82%. And then when you go the over 75s, it drops to 72%.
Yep.
There's very good reason for that. It's because if you've got arthritis, if you've got poor eyesight and so on, a smartphone is a very difficult
absolutely
piece
and again it's stuff that we kind of almost, I didn't grow up with one, but like youngsters growing up with them, and I certainly had them since my 30s, and therefore it's very, you're used to having a mobile phone. A lot of these people don't even have a brick phone. But the crucial thing here is the idea that, okay, let's just say we all had iPhones or equivalent Samsungs or whatever, and just say everything. And what's the issue? Why should anyone be concerned about with the government having all of your information on an app in one place?
Well, it creates a one-stop shop for fraudsters. At the moment, someone steals your identity. There is a bit of footwork involved in that. They've got to sort of collect information from different places. If we've got a digital ID database, they've only got to get into your system once. So, get into your phone, they've got your identity. And we've seen, from Jaguar to Marks and Spencer's and so on, the way that hackers are getting into these systems, which are notionally secure, it's not just sort of ignorant people who have been falling victim to
their password is password. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, even the banks. I mean, virtually every big bank, big cyber companies. I mean, people are getting hacked on a grand scale, and we see the government routinely. I mean, just leaving information. And that's the thing. At that point, someone's got access to your health records. You may have had an operation that you perhaps don't want your other half to know, or something. Your ability, your income. They've got access to every single part of your life.
And yeah, and don't believe a government if they say they won't sell off this data to commercial interest, because look what happens with the electoral roll. Look what happens with the DVLA database, where the government just flogs off your information to these cowboy parking companies so they can issue their tickets and so on. You know, we've had these databases, we sort of consent to these databases, and then the government doesn't stick to its side of the deal.
But what about the surveillance side of things? The concern that a lot of people have, and I share it, people have been paying attention to what happened during COVID, paying attention to what's been happening in China, the social credit system. So people say, oh, don't be so silly, it couldn't happen here. I mean, it literally happened here in 2020 and 2021. I don't know why people are surprised that it couldn't happen again. And this is the ability of the government to say, look, we can track what you buy, we can track when you've had a vaccine, we can track all your data in one place. And basically, you know, if you haven't got up to date on your jabs, you can't buy things, you can't travel, you can't do that central data makes that possible, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and you can just imagine a future pandemic where we have a lockdown, and we'll all be tracked by our phones. You know, pop down the shop and spend 5 minutes too long outside your house, then you'll be sprung with a fine. You know,
so people think that's a joke. It literally happened.
Yeah, exactly. The possibilities for this, and this morning there's a story about, you know, the new nationalised rail company wants to use tracking our phones to charge us, you know, as an alternative to buying a ticket. We'd just be tracked on our phones. Well, you know, you've then got a system where you're tracking people around the country all the time. And
well, what about the argument? If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, Ross.
Even if you've got nothing to hide, you run up to the problem of dealing with this bloody technology. On Friday night, I tried to renew my driving license card. You know, these photo cards. I've always been fairly easy in the past, but now you've got to download some app to prove your identity.
Oh yeah, I had to do that the other day.
Circles of hell.
Yeah, and again, if it all doesn't work, how does it, you know, you won't be able to access things in your life. This thing about the card, you can lose it, but you can get it replaced. I think the key thing is just the fact that it's going to be something that is going to be updating constantly. We're going to be talking more about that.
All right, another good one from Jason A. I think I want to save the Tyson De La Cruz for tomorrow morning. So that way I could have it for the morning show. Because I need to get to bed early too. Because I know Rob went to bed and he has to be up at 5:30. I got to wake up at 6 in the morning. So I got to get to bed too early. So before I leave, I'm just going to get a recap on the weather, what's going on in the tropics. And then we'll be wrapping up the show. And then I'll leave the 4 Tyson De La Cruz. I'm going to leave it for a back-to-back on tomorrow's show. And I could at least, you know, put, you know, he'll be here Thursday, come Thursday, Tyson De La Cruz. Oh, man. All right, let's check out the weather, and then we'll be off for the night because I got to get a bit early, too. It's all right. All right, let's set this up and let's watch. Last show of the night.
Something you don't see every day. 2 tropical systems within 600 miles of one another. What's going on, guys? Certified meteorologist Jonathan Kegas back with you. We're going to talk about the evolution of the forecast that was from over the weekend. And then towards the end of the video, we're going to look a little long range into the tropics to see if this is the last little push of the hurricane season or if there's anything else out there in the long range. Post in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love to know your thoughts on how this all evolved. I have kind of a special message, and it has to deal with what I said in the last video about not jumping the gun when you see those catastrophic model runs. And I think that came back to bite a lot of people that I don't want to say scaring necessarily, but we'll get into that in just one second. First, we're going to marvel at this, and we are still watching this for Bermuda, but we have those 2 systems that are going to dance, and we can all give Umberto a round of applause because it got so strong, and because Imelda was on the slower side, they're going to dance. And Umberto is going to save the southeast corner of the United States from what would have been a ridiculous run from Imelda. Remember, you saw those projections that what would have been if it didn't pull it away. So there's the dance in action. This is going to be Wednesday morning. You see the two swirls there, one north of Bermuda, one south of Bermuda, and then they both kind of tug and pull on each other, and then they both kind of hopefully split the difference for us in Bermuda too, and then work their way with this kind of merging system out as we get into the end of the work week. So this is still this interaction going to be fascinating to watch.
That is what's going to come back to bite us with snow
on Imelda. We have
in the winter.
close proximity to
These two
each other.
systems going up north
to the Florida coast
and getting into the
leaving
polar,
Bahamas alone.
when it comes back down as a front,
extends all the way
that's what's going to bring us a lot of snow.
So that's wild. The trough
especially,
that,
you know, December, January.
Carolinas, it missed its ride up, but it is blowing all of its outflow kind of up toward New England as that lifts to the north, and Imelda is going to make that sharp right turn to the right. So there we go now to the right with that forecast cone. This one could become a Category 2 hurricane. Now, Bermuda, we are square in the cone. So we're going to be watching this closely because we still could have some impacts as we move into the day on Wednesday into Thursday. And that's just from Imelda. Of course, the waves are already crazy big with respect to Umberto, that's still down there just south of the island. So, I mean, these guys are going to be, guy and girl, going to be dancing around each other for the next couple of days. And again, it's going to be something to watch. So as of 5 o'clock tonight, we'll get the new advisory, still hanging on to a Category 4 hurricane. It's teetering on that strain, so we might end up seeing it downgraded by 11. Nevertheless, still a major hurricane. Now, this one going to go up and around Bermuda, staying a Cat 2 hurricane still through Wednesday and keeping hurricane status through at least Wednesday afternoon before coming extratropical. So something wild to watch because just the evolution of how the rest of this is going to unfold is certainly something that's going to, go down in the books for sure, because this doesn't happen all that often, especially on the Atlantic side. This Fujiwara effect where the storms need to be, I believe it's 800 miles or closer, and you saw it there. We are under that 600-mile threshold for them to kind of tug and pull. And that interaction, no doubt, saved the United States. Okay, to date, we've had 9 named storms. 3 of those have become hurricanes. 3 of those have become major hurricanes. So with how quiet this season has been, we still made history because this is the first time since 1935, it's 90 years, that the first 3 hurricanes of the season all would go on to become major hurricanes. So that's pretty rare to happen. Again, hasn't happened in 90 years. And that's going to be something that will go down in the history books, regardless of how active or not active or inactive this season will go on to be. Still obviously have about 9 weeks of the season to go. We're still kind of in the back end of the peak of hurricane season. So you see that right there, that little orange box, really going from the end of September through about the middle of October. That is where we have the rest of peak. And then the season kind of goes on through until November 30th. So some of the things that we are still watching. Now, had a question to talk about what I think is going to happen for the rest of the season. So we keep on highlighting this. And I think the jury is still out if we're going to get a straight up MJO pulse right on through from the Pacific into the Atlantic. What's been happening is they collapse a little bit and then we don't get that forcing. Now, this is the forecast through October 13th. And what we're looking at here, find the United States on the right side of the map in Central America, we do have a big giant plume of green that would show us that we have rising motion anomalies, which when you get air to rise and you get storms to develop, and given the atmosphere, then you can get tropical systems to develop. So that's something to watch the second week of October. It's also still pretty juiced out in the main development region. And there are indications. Let me just take you out a little bit further. There we go through the third week of October. And then we get some of the light brown to slide through. So hopefully after the third week of October, this comes to an end. But one of the things I wanted to show you, this is now going out to the 8th, 9th. That's another system that the Google AI DeepMind model is pegging there. Some of the other ensembles are showing it as well. So there may be one more storm to come from the main development region, which would then give us 10. We'll see if that comes into fruition. The Google AI did all right. It wasn't the slam dunk that some people, I don't know why it's such a, there's so much shade thrown to the math and physics models. They didn't perform well, but not all of them had this going up to the Carolinas. Regardless, it did pretty well. And so again, we watch. And the reason why we talked about this early last week, that we should rely on the AI models because they're basically an analog, a much faster analog than what humans can look up. The weather charts from way back in the day is taking the conditions of now and it's looking back and being like, hey, the conditions were similar then. Maybe this storm is going to do something like that. And that's why that is kind of helpful. So that's why the AI is going to be helpful. Again, I still trust the math and physics ones as well. It's just another tool in the toolbox. All right. So I touched on this on Friday. A lot of channels and a lot of other places were highlighting the extreme rainfall potential in the Carolinas. What was there potential for it? Yes, there was. In my opinion, especially given with what happened with Helene last year, there is no way that those rainfall projections should have been tossed around like that was gospel. We talked about as well that on Friday, we still hadn't had meaningful hurricane hunter data, which, side note, Gonzo, the Gulfstream, the G4 jet from NOAA, it flew a path from Lakeland, Florida, around Umberto, and then back around Imelda, and then back to Lakeland. After that mission, models were like, yeah, we think Umberto is going to grab this thing and pull it out. We talked about this. We need that hurricane hunter data. And until we start getting that data in, it's really hard to come to the conclusion because there's no data or very limited data out into the middle of the ocean. And that is why it was inappropriate for those giant rainfall forecasts in the Carolinas, especially given what those poor people went through last year, almost a year to the date. So that's my soapbox for the night. We talked about it was either going in or it was either going out. I didn't have the answer that it was going out on Friday. I'm going to admit that. We talked about that as a possibility, and something that I learned way back in meteorology school is that you keep all the possibilities open at that stage of the game. You don't write anything off because, again, Imelda went slower, so it missed that trough. It missed that trough. Hold on. I think I have it right here. I have it right here. So I showed you this last week. So it missed that trough. So since Imelda was slower, that's the one that was 94L at the time. It missed that trough lifting. So therefore, there was nothing to pull it. And 93L, Umberto, got really strong. So it's going to be grabbing it over the next couple of days and pulling it back. I just plead caution with everybody that it's better to be right than be first. And I think that did a lot of harm to the field over the weekend. The way out was always there. You can go back and look at the video that I pleaded with everybody that the way out was always on the table. To not let your guard down in the Carolinas, but the way out was certainly on the table.
Yeah, because the low pressure that the front came through.
And
the front is like a blocking. It's not going to let it go.
And they're going to do the dance and get on out of here. All righty, guys. Thanks for letting me rant. I just want to put that out there because I think that was something huge over the weekend. Very, very huge.
Good. So let's go ahead and wrap it up because I'm tired myself too. Thank you, weatherman, for the weather. Thank goodness. I said, let's push it away. When it first started with the storm, I was like, let's focus our energy and let's push the storm away. Let's not make it hit. And you can go back and watch when I said that. And sure enough, it's not going to hit the United States. And that's a good thing. I'm happy for that. So with that said, it was a good night. I had a great time. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, and a good night wherever you're at. and I'll catch y'all on the flip side. And I'll be back on tomorrow with a back-to-back of Tyson De La Cruz. It's going to be awesome. I do have them here live every Thursday at 7:30 Eastern Time and 4:30 Pacific on the PM. And yeah, like I said, we'll do this again tomorrow. All right, guys. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. You should go to bed too. Good night. Bye for now.